join the hand.
Good evening. I have to say we started this early because there were so many people that said they wanted us to start early because they had tons of questions. And they apparently have all forgotten that we were doing this.
It's
So
okay,
Simon,
they'll be here.
I was going to say you're going to get lots of chance to talk to start with. So
Yeah, it's cool. I'm going to have lots of chances to get you to talk, because this is an interview with the goat, not with Simon. I'm sure people will show up. They'll have just got a notification that you've gone live, so...
Oh, the really fun part is going to be when, like a racer shows up like 2 hours in saying, "Thanks, YouTube notifications, for not telling me."
Yeah, gotta love
He's done
YouTube.
he's done that several times.
Oh, I've
and
done
and
it.
and he always starts with, "Thanks, YouTube." All right. So, let's see. I feel like I had a bunch of like paperwork and disclaimers to start with.
Okay, well, the
Except
disclaimer is basically that this is an interview with you. It's not you giving advice for any specific project, and anyone asking questions
I mean, if
is
people
just
have
asking
if
for your opinion on stuff.
yeah, I mean, if people
If they
like
want a professional consultation, they can pay for a professional consultation. They exist.
yeah, they can, but I mean, if somebody has a question about like, you know, hey, in this situation, like what should I do? Then I mean, as long as it's not too complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm
it's
not
going
I'm
to be
not
more what would you do in that situation, and if they choose to do that, that's up to them.
I'll tell you right now, Simon, that almost all of my actual like editing is basically this is what I do in this situation because other people's projects are not mine, and so the only thing I can do is offer advice. I'm not going to tell people. That's actually like one of the first things I wanted to start with is that there is a lot of misinformation about what editors do. Mainly because people are used to editors who work for publishers, and so those publishers require certain standards and certain content, and editors say, well, I'm going to change this or this. But if you're getting an editor for an independent project that is not going through an editor, or not going through a publisher, all an editor should do, depending on what you hired them for, is either proofread, uh, do content checks, which would be line editing. Did names stay consistent all the way through? Are there any major plot holes? Things like that. Driving and Dragons is here. Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't even gone through the chat thing yet, which I usually do first. I'm very discombobulated today, so
Yeah, so we'll start with saying hi to the chat. So currently that's Driving and Dragons and
there's several here actually.
and
Legatus was
Legatus.
was in, I think, pretty much first. Pastor is here. Hello to you too. Legatus did go. So there is a difference between waves to the goat and goat waves, which is how I usually enter chats. Some guy named Simon is here. I don't know what he's doing here, but
Yeah, I should probably ban him.
YouTube did its job today. So does it still get a thank you when it works properly? Driving and Dragons, I'm in, and my book is collectively edited. Interesting. Uh,
Well, we'll talk about that in a bit because that's an interesting thing that we can cover is
I'm
collective
in
editing.
I'm in your chat and mine at the moment. And no, YouTube does not get a thank you for working properly. Only sarcastic thank yous from the eraser. Thank you very much. And then we do apparently have some lurkers because the viewing numbers do not match the chat numbers. So
That's
everyone who
fine
is
if people are listening but can't chat. That's
well,
all good.
I was going to say is I just wanted to send a shout out to the people who are lurking because we're so happy to have you here. So for I'm not good at this. Simon is here mainly because I'm terrible as Trump would call it. I'm terrible at pimping myself. I'm a very bad capitalist. Um, but I am going to make a quick mention of the fact that, as some of you know, I have some upcoming rather monstrous medical bills I'm looking at. So I am absolutely not tying answers to whether or not people donate. You will get bumped ahead on the line if you donate. But if people are willing to donate, super chats are open, and there is a Ko-fi link that is pinned.
Yeah. So we're going to try with this stream to provide some value for people, and that whether or not you pay, you you should gain some value from this stream. But as with anything where you're getting value from something, it is generally nice to show some appreciation monetarily to the person that's providing that value. And Goat, in this instance, could do with your money because she's got medical bills coming up. So super chats will mean your question definitely gets asked. Feel free to use that for trolling questions as well that aren't even remotely about editing, and I will ask her them. I can't guarantee she'll be able to answer them if you're asking something like, to which do you most can't the least?
Yeah, I was going to say trolling questions are definitely not getting dealt with unless there's a donation, and even then, it's going to be up to them.
Yeah, so if I
I'm
donate,
not giving you
I
my
will ask
address or my
you.
phone number.
I will ask you whether you answer is a different matter, but legitimate questions, definitely if you super chat, then it will get asked. I have a list of 705 questions that I can ask Goat.
Simon might be a little bit anal. I mean,
Well,
I thought I was, but
I'm just well prepared, and this might not be the only stream that we do this.
I seriously could not come up with 700 questions to ask anyone, much less about editing. I mean, I could probably wing 700 questions, but if you sat me down with a piece of paper and said you have to come up with 700 questions, I might come up with 5.
Yeah, so I will be asking lots of questions. I'm not going to ask all 705. I'll just pick and choose what feels suitable at the time. If I spot a question in the chat and it's not a super chat, then I'll do my best to ask it, but super chats do get highlighted, so I will actually see those. Bear in mind that I am asking questions and interviewing Goats, so if you're just regular chats with your questions, I might not see it. If I do, I'll ask it. If I don't, sorry. So super chats are the way to go with that. Doesn't
Oh,
have
you
to
know
be
what?
much. It just has to do it so that it highlights the.
I am actually also going to pop up the little spot where it gives me notifications about whether or not anyone's donated through Ko-fi, and I'll check that every 15 minutes or so. So,
That's a good idea because I can't see that.
yeah, just if I haven't, people may have to poke me because my sense of time is not great,
Yeah,
especially
if you donate
especially if I'm
through,
thinking deeply about things. However, a lot of people are a lot more comfortable with Ko-fi or coffee or however it's pronounced, because they take a much less large chunk than YouTube does. YouTube takes like a third or something.
Yeah. So if you do donate anything through Ko-fi, Coffee, who knows how it's pronounced, just drop a mention of it in the chat, and hopefully we'll see it. But we'll be checking that regularly anyway at regular
Yeah.
intervals.
Um,
Coffee like Siffy, Driving and Dragons.
also,
So.
also if like members have already given me money, so I sort of feel like if they, I
Well,
should pay it
we've
forward.
already got a super chat question, so I'm going to ask you that before we even get started on the interview. Is, as a goat, what kind of hay do you prefer?
It depends on the time of year. Um, so Maine is notorious for having bad grass, and so when it gets dried, it's actually even worse, which means either lots of grain with hay stretcher and beet pulp and timothy hay, or less bulky wise alfalfa and grain in the wintertime. And otherwise, grass. All the grass.
So I hope
And
that
shrubs.
answers
And
Shinku for
shrubs.
Statistics. I thought goats would eat anything. They're like,
That is actually not true. My sheep are less fussy than my goats are. Granted, they are a feral sheep, so they're a very, very old breed and designed to digest just about anything. But the thing is that so are my goats. Um, but yeah, the sheep will eat things that the goats won't. It's kind of interesting.
so we should probably try and get the interview on a more sensible track.
I mean, so far it's going about how I expected.
That's cool. So
Goofus,
just for for anyone
thank you very
who
much.
for anyone who somehow sees this and doesn't already know who you are, can you just briefly explain who is the Eclectic Goat and what do you do?
Sure. I am the Eclectic Goat, and what I do is very eclectic. I write nonfiction articles for magazines professionally. I also edit novels, role playing games. I have one regular business newsletter I do. I have done script editing. Um, and I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I don't think so, though. I think that's about it.
So
Um,
what sort of got you into editing? 'Cause I understand that that wasn't always what you've done.
uh,
A bit of a career change.
so, well, yes and no. The newsletter actually has been going on for about 10 years. Um, it was a small business that I just sort of like started helping out. Um, and then for a while, they got into a problem where they were having trouble. There was a writing shortage. They needed writing help, so I started doing the writing. Actually, I take it back. I think I started out writing for them, and then when they got an actual writer, which was great because at the time I was working in hospitals 90 hours a week. Um, I took to just editing for their writer. Um, basically, the owner of the company took over writing, but was not is not struggles with it. Finds it very stressful. So I do the editing. So that's been going on for over 10 years. I started writing more professionally 7 or 8 years ago, I think. And it picked up a bunch. And I have a bunch of friends who are published, so I would do some editing for them, kind of, not officially, but quite a bit. And then magazines started folding because the post office jacked up the price of uh, shipping everything, and online magazines don't work very well. Um, and so, since by that point I had already had to leave my job for medical reasons and because I hated it, I decided that I was going to kind of pivot into doing more editing and doing it more officially. And I took to doing a lot of role playing games because I discovered it's apparently hard to find someone with extensive role playing experience who also doesn't mind the tedious work of figuring out whether or not your comma is in the right spot.
So how long have you been into role playing games?
Oh, that is math I don't want to do. At least 35 years, probably longer, but I will get depressed if I think about that too much.
So enough time that you've got experience with a wide range of games though, and
Yep, I kind of, as most of us do, I started out with D&D. Um and then I went to college and discovered there were all these other very cool games that I liked a whole lot better than D&D. And so I stopped playing D&D before not playing D&D was cool. Um and I started playing Shadowrun, and I started playing I wasn't crazy about World of Darkness, but other people were, so I played that. Played Little Rifts. Started running games. Started out my my first game that I ever ran was the first edition of Cult, which is considered to be one of the like darkest, most messed up games ever written. Um, and yeah, now I've got. I mean, I have a convention coming up where I have two science fiction games, one comedy game, two horror games, and a fantasy. I think something like that. I'm probably missing something, um, but yeah. So I do a lot of different systems, a lot of different genres. I have my preferences, but cover a wide ground.
which convention is that? If anyone wanted to find you out in the wild,
PortCon. It has about 4 or 5 thousand people. It's actually considered a what do they call it these days? I don't know, a fan convention, I guess. A lot of anime, a lot of they don't call it dress up anymore. Uh, I don't know, whatever they call it these days. Cosplay. There we go. Um, some LARPing, a lot of games, a lot of board games. Um, they do like a fashion show. They've got like one night where they have this massive dance party. They have cosplay, costume prizes, a lot of special guests. They have
yeah. So
actually they've
um,
actually expanded the game section a lot this year. I helped them out working on that, and they've got somewhere between 50 and 60 role playing games over the course of the weekend now.
so Eraserhead, if you could just do us a favour and find a link to PortCon for us and put it in the chat for people.
It's PortCon Maine. I don't remember if
PortCon
it's
name.
I don't remember if it's .com or
That's okay. We'll hopefully have one of your lovely mods will.
yeah. I'd really hoped to make Page next year or next January, and I'd hoped to make one other this fall. Um, However, the fact that I may have stuff coming up means that all of that is going to be on hold until, which probably means I'll miss Page for the second year in a row, which is a bummer.
Unfortunate, but it'll be on next year.
Well, it's in January, which means the cutoff to run games for it is like this month.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
it'll be on
can't,
the following year. Like,
I can't spend $1,500 to like go to a convention and run games while sitting here saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to pay $5,000 worth of medical bills." So,
yeah. So on that note, since we've got a few more people have arrived, just very briefly, this is an open Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll try and see them. If you don't get your question asked, it's because I didn't see it. If you send it as a super chat, I'll definitely see it because YouTube helpfully highlights it. You can also send it as a note on Ko-Fi, and Goat will be checking that every 15 minutes or so, just in case anyone's sent anything through there, but also put a note in chat if you do that. So
Speaking
You've
of which, I think I have a couple of coffee, whatever alerts.
okay. Well, do you want
Except
to?
I've, like an idiot, I have realized that I did not. I signed into the notifications. I did not sign into the actual thing, which then lets me see the notifications because it's
That's okay.
being
We'll give
it's
you
being
a moment.
difficult.
We'll give you a moment to do that.
Oh, I can multitask. So you can ask me another question while I'm.
So we've got a question from Wormy Spoons, which is, what's the best book you've edited?
What is the best book I've edited? It really depends on what you like for genres. Um, it wasn't actually an edit. I did a beta read for. Hang on a second. I have a copy of it. Oops, I do not have a copy of it in this room. That's what I get for actually organizing all my books. Did a beta read for. I remember what the series name is. I don't remember the name of the first book. That's where
Oh,
I'm.
what was the series name?
Uh, Mara of the League, The Witches of Crannock Dale. That's the book I'm trying to think of.
The Witches of Crannockdale.
Now, to be fair, Tom Kane, who has been on here several times, is the author of that book. But I do promise that, despite the fact that he is a friend, that book is quite good. I will also tell you the second book is less good. It's not bad, but it should have been two books. I did not beta read the second one, just for the record.
So
um,
Driving and Dragons has said the best book you ever read was Corvid Codex Volume 1, which presumably is Driving and Dragons' book.
um,
So
and
that's the
he,
point. If anyone in the chat has their own book, feel free to drop a name of it in there so that people can go and look you up.
if you prefer drama, I edited a book by a guy named Thomas Tate called. What is his latest one? I've actually done several books for him. Um, he's definitely gotten better over time.
That sounds like that might have answered Original Hamster's question. Briefly, we'll get to another Goofus the Doofus question though, since they did super chat. Does having hooves make it difficult to operate a keyboard?
I mean, honestly, I feel like having fingers makes it hard to operate a keyboard sometimes. Um, Ergonomic keyboards. Everyone should have them.
Oh, ergonomic everything, like repetitive strain injury is a thing. But if you have hooves instead of fingers, I suppose you need it
Beyond all
ergonomically
measure
going
is his
forward.
latest one, and it is the best one.
So, Original Hamster asked what's something from your earlier days that you would have liked to stand the test of time but didn't. So, would you say that that book you just mentioned would cover that?
What's
That their
something from
later
your
work is better?
earlier days? I mean, I'm not entirely certain I understand the question. Is he asking, Hamstar, are you asking something that I've edited, or are you just asking general?
Well, this is an interview about you as an editor, so it would be
Well,
something that you've edited.
yeah, but that question is very vague, and considering we've already covered, my difficulty with running keyboards, uh, I mean, and I don't know what we're talking about with earlier days. I mean, like I said, I just recently started officially doing a lot of editing. I mean, there were a couple of true crime stuff I did beta reads on when I was in
You've mentioned
college
you've
that was
mentioned
pretty
doing
good.
some of your friends' stuff, so perhaps something that one of your friends has produced that you think should have got more love but hasn't.
Um, well, I think the true crime stuff that I did probably should have. Now let's see if I can remember the name of the ones that I did. Of course. All of a sudden, everything is coming up as sorry, we can't do that because you don't have a secure connection. I don't know if it's just that site or.
Is this on Ko-Fi?
Nope. Oh, I am still trying to figure out the Kofi thing, though, aren't I?
Yes.
So maybe I was wrong. Maybe I can't multitask.
Well, if you want to do that, I'm going to quickly just scroll through the chat and have a look at some of the questions that have been posted, because it looks like there's been a few. Right, so Bad Toad Games, seen your question, I will ask that in a moment. Driving and Dragons, again, I will get that question you've just posed there in a second, so just to let you know, I have seen those, they will be asked once Goat has actually got into Ko-Fi.
Okay, so here is a question because this person donated under their actual name, and I don't know. Yes, I cannot multi-goat. I don't know if they want me to say their name out loud. I could do first name.
Just give a first name. You don't need to give their full name, just so if they're watching, they know it's theirs.
Okay, so David gave a $10 donation on Ko-fi, which I really, really, really appreciate.
Yep, thank you, David.
And it's giving me multiple notifications, but that appears to be the only one I can see. So I don't know if it just decided I needed 3 different notifications that had come
That
in.
absolutely would not surprise me. If anybody has posted a question on Ko-Fi and you're not David, please mention it in the chat
I'm
as well, and
or
we'll.
you are David. I mean,
Or if you are David and you've sent multiple questions, or if you're David and you just want to get some cred for being David.
no matter
'Cause
what,
David is
it's awesome
awesome.
and I appreciate you.
So what was David's question? Sorry.
There's no I just got a notification that
Oh,
said
no,
they'd
no
made a
question
donation.
attached.
There was no note.
Okay, well, thank you very much, David. Feel free to ask a question in the chat, and
What's
Amst is not all Spartacus.
what's even weirder is that it is not showing up as an actual. It's not showing up on the supporters page. It just showed up as that notification, which does not appear to actually be accessible from my homepage, which is very weird. I set this up like 3 months ago, and they've apparently changed the layout since, which is why I'm having such a hard time.
Yeah, I can see Davey. He put a message on there, says Ko-Fi better has a better creator split. And that was 18 minutes ago. So it wasn't a question, but he did put a comment on it. And that does show up on your page. So
Just
I'll,
means
I'll
NASA's
keep an eye
monkey.
on that as well. And then all you have to worry about is answering the questions. There we go. So, going back to the questions posed by the chat, we've got Bad Toad Games who has asked, what's a comfortable level of pages or size of book for you to edit for a tabletop role playing game before you think this is too many?
That is
Perhaps something where you may need
entirely that is entirely based on the content. I have done uh how do I put this? I did one game that came to me in two parts. Um One was the game itself, one was the kind of MIDI adventure you stick onto the back of the thing so people can play it. The adventure itself was, I think, 140 something pages. Um, Quite clean, needed a lot of suggestion notes, but nothing that was really crazy. Did not make me pull my hair out. Zipped through it in a few weeks, not a big deal. The adventure was 14 pages and took me almost as long, required like 200 plus notes for 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 those pages. And I yeah. So it's very much a matter of the content. It's a matter of whether or not the author has at least read their stuff back over once. There are people who literally will just write and then they don't go back and look at it again at all. Um, which is, I mean, it's just going to cost them money and me time that isn't necessary. So,
So just a quick thank you to Lost Law Scholar who sent a £2 super chat.
thank you
Not
very
sure what
much.
that is in dollars. It shows me it in pounds because I'm in the UK. Uh,
Uh, I will probably say that if you get into really, really long stuff, um, there are a lot of people I have seen who put crunch in that is not necessary. Um, like I literally edited a game at one point that made Palladium look rules light, and I don't mind a little crunch, but I would say probably somewhere between 150, 250 pages. If you start getting to the point where you could beat someone to death with a game book, probably you've overdone it. And that's not the editing, though. That's just plain old whether or not the game is readable.
yeah, so that's more your personal preference as a gamer.
Um, well, as a reader,
Yeah.
um, because I have a fairly high tolerance for crunch compared to a lot of people out there these days. Layout also makes a big difference, and whether or not I'm getting. It is harder to read stuff electronically than it is to read paper copies of things. It takes longer. Layout is more important. So people who haven't done the layout of their game yet um, might need to give me a little more time.
So would you prefer work that's in a sort of pre-publication stage and can be you can have a printed copy sent to you to read through and mark notes in pen or pencil and then
I mean, that
write
would
it
be.
up, or would you prefer the digital?
I mean, realistically, in a perfect world, I would love to be able to have a physical copy to make notes, and then I would just go over and copy them over and send them back. Or I suppose I could just mail the book back to the person. Um, Realistically, though, what makes as much as I do not like Word and it doesn't run well, it is good for making notes. And it is also good because I can do voice to text. Um, because otherwise there does come a point where I'm just like I can't sit at the keyboard anymore. But if I can stand up and continue to make notes, I can work faster. Um, it's simply a matter of the fact that I have crap eyes and it's easier for me to. Hmm. I don't need like the actual text layout done. What I need is I need people to not have single space 8-point font, um, at one long paragraph.
Yeah, so it should be at least in a state where you could paste it into an editing program like Publisher and do the layout with it
It
in the
should.
font size that it's in and with the spacing that it's in. Would that be reasonable?
I honestly, I just thought of this as an example, and I should like use this in the future when I'm talking to people. Uh, you should you should be able to turn it into a high school English teacher.
Yeah, that makes sense. So 1.5 times line spacing, font size 12. That
Not
was.
not just that. You should have read it over enough that like you've caught really simple errors. Your paragraphs are in the right spot. You have your proper um,
Oh,
heading
absolutely. I mean, that's
headings.
not just down to making your life easier though. They're paying you for your work, and it's going to take longer if they haven't done these things.
Well,
So
that's what I mean. It's just it's going to cost them more money and me more time.
yeah,
And
you do the basic proofread yourself, which I'm always telling people don't proofread your own work, but what that means is don't proofread your own work and call that done.
yeah,
You still proofread it first just to make sure it all makes sense to you and spot any errors that you can, but then get somebody that's a professional to proofread it. If you can afford to, obviously. But it is worth spending the money on that, in my opinion, as somebody that has published work. So we had a question from Driving and Dragons, which was, do you prefer line editing or full-blown content editing, including beta reading and critique?
um, okay, so let me go back to my definitions because I don't think he was here for that. Proofreading is, do you have all your commas, capitalization, uh, n dashes, m dashes? Like, is everything in the right place? Is everything structurally correct? Line editing is flow, clarity, readability. Did you start out calling your main character Sarah and turn it to Sally halfway through and miss a couple spots when you were making changes? Um, Alpha and beta reading are various read throughs by people who are not editing. Um, the problem with having an editor also do your, I mean, editing is to a certain extent alpha reading on its own, but beta reading is what gets done right before it goes to publication to make sure that there aren't any glaring things that have been overlooked. For instance, I did a beta read once for a book that used a lot of military time through it. Coincidentally, I once worked with law enforcement, and they all use military time. And so, as I was beta reading it, they had these headings of this location, such and such a time, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. And so I went back through and started checking and realized that they had screwed up one of the times because they were jumping from like time zone to time zone. And they'd actually put one of the events before the event that it was supposed to cause, or after the event it was supposed to cause. Um, but that's not something an editor would necessarily pick up because it's not in the structure of the actual story. Um, I just happened to have the knowledge to catch that before it actually went to publication. Um,
And for
so
any
what?
viewers that aren't in the USA, military time is just time. That's what we call time. I'm not sure where your viewers are, but 24-hour clock.
Um, so what I do, I offer proofreading, I offer line editing, and then I offer what I refer to as break my game. Um, so I have bunch of real life players who also, with one exception, are also over 30 years of gaming experience. Also, wide variety of genres, styles, etc. And we will do play tests for companies, like beta play tests instead of beta reads. But we also will do a break your game, in which case all of them will take their worst possible instincts and play your game with it and find out if there are any rules that are just an absolute mess. If you get somebody who really is a rules lawyer or a min maxer or any of those things. So um as far as preference, I don't really have one, except that maybe if I'm proofreading and I see something that's really glaring that would be a line edit, it's very hard for me not to make a note. um But yeah, I don't really have a preference. I mean, I pretty much stick to the things that I'm good at that I because the thing is that part of being an editor is being able to do really tedious stuff, and it's a lot easier to do really pointed, like tedious keeping an eye on things um if it's something you enjoy. That's one of the other reasons I do games. It's a topic that I enjoy. Um
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to enjoy your work, just generally.
yeah. I do not do like technical. I don't do, technical manuals because I'd be miserable. Um I had one game recently that I struggled with a lot because apparently they really liked math and I don't. Because one of the things I do when I'm checking rules is I sit there and I try and actually like go through and make sure that, you know, it statistically isn't totally unbalanced for or against the players. Um, and yeah, this one had like full on algebraic, like, uh, it was rough. But I didn't realize that when I took the contract. So,
A lesson learned, I guess, um, to check
well,
these things.
well, the problem is that most people are really uncomfortable with just turning over their manuscript. Um, Sorry, I just got to this point, so thank you very much, Scholar. Um, Most people are really uncomfortable with just turning over their entire manuscript to someone until there's a contract, which is totally fair. But it's very hard for me to quote them a price and give them a contract unless I know something about it. So usually what I say is send me, your first 2 pages, random middle 2 pages, and your end 2 pages. Um, and I'll build a quote based on that. Uh, but that means that if those pages don't have to include those massive algebraic equations, I don't realize what's happening.
Yeah.
So I actually had to go.
I suppose that's to some extent them not really giving you a full explanation of what it is they want proofread. If you're asking for a couple of middle pages and they pick a couple of middle pages that are just text rather than algebra, but then
Yeah.
the middle of the book's full of algebra.
Yep. Wormy Spoon said, to be fair, everything I write is perfect. Um, I mean, honestly, that kind of does happen sometimes because the fact is, your eyes and your brain, your eyes don't actually see everything as the world is. It sees like in chunks, and then your brain just fills in with what it expects. So if your brain says, I wrote this sentence, I know what this sentence was supposed to say. So even if it doesn't say that, you are literally going to see it as it should be. And that's not because anybody's a bad writer or a bad editor. I edit for a living, but when I write, someone else edits my work, usually a couple of someone else's. Because you cannot see your own mistakes, and it's not, people take that as a slam. It's not. It's literally that your eyes don't work that way. People who say the deer came out of nowhere, they're not kidding. Their their brain said this road is always empty, and so it literally filled in a gap with an empty road, and then the deer appeared out of nowhere.
It's quite interesting the sort of psychology behind that sort of thing. Like, you hear people say don't believe your lying eyes, but your eyes do literally lie to you.
Yep.
Would you say though, on that note, that if you can't afford a professional editor for whatever reason, like didn't budget for it, or it's your first publication or something, to maybe find a friend to do it, and in return buy them a beer or edit some of their work for them, and just quid pro quo type situation rather than try and do it yourself?
Um, Honestly, the first thing I would recommend people do is listen to their book. Like if it's in Word, you can get it to read to you, and don't look at the screen. Close your eyes and listen to it, because you can hear mistakes you can't see. Um, there are some websites for people that will like look at work and edit and make suggestions. It's always a little iffy as to whether or not um yeah, I mean, it's questionable as to whether or not they're safe or not. I have gotten good suggestions in the past on some of them. But those were things I wrote for myself. If I were writing something professionally, I don't know that I would do that.
Or are we
Um,
talking Grammarly or something with that?
no, no, no. There are literally like free websites where, two writers who are who are working on something can swap whatever it is they're working on and look at each
Oh, I
other's
see.
work.
So
And
you're relying on the other person being competent without knowing them.
well, you're also relying on them not to steal your stuff.
Yes.
Um, it,
So what about?
friends are great. The problem is they're biased. Um, and it is sometimes really hard to take critique from someone who is a friend. Honestly, going to your local high school or your local librarian, um, and asking them is probably better.
So I always try to think of good friends as someone that will tell you as when something is shit.
The,
You don't want to be surrounded by yes men. That's
well,
just.
it's like the eyesight thing, though. You're automatically biased, which is why I felt the need to say, Tom is a personal friend. His book is good, uh, but he is a personal friend. Because there may be issues with that book that not technical issues, but there may be issues with the plot of that book that I can't see. Um,
Oh, so
because
this is another thing like with the deer where you
yeah,
don't see it because he's your friend.
yeah, it's not that people are yes menning you. It's that literally they want good things for you. They also know you personally. So if there's something that is not, um, all right, let me say how I say this. If there is something that is not clear to a stranger, like you have a plot point in your head, you knew what you meant what the character should look like, you knew what the character should sound like, you knew what the character's intentions were. A stranger may not be able to pick up on that if it's not well written, but a friend who knows you and knows how you think might be able to pick up on it, especially if they think similarly to you. What you need is somebody reading it that doesn't know you, not just because it's easier for them to be objective, not just because it's easier to take feedback, but also because you need someone that doesn't know the inside of your brain.
I suppose if you've got in-jokes and stuff as well, which we've come across on something we reviewed, there was some kind of in-joke on there that
Yep, yep.
somebody who didn't know the person would have probably picked up on before publication.
Slang terms. If you share a local slang term and you both know what it means, but somebody who lives in Australia is going to have no idea what you're talking about, you might not, neither of you might catch that because it's a term that you grew up with. It's a term you use all the time. You have absolutely no idea that other people aren't. I have run across terms that I didn't even realize are New England slang terms until someone said, I have no idea what that is.
Can you give me an example of a New England slang term, just for context?
Maine continued to use the word rotary for about 10 years after everyone else went to the term roundabout.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I probably would have got that from context, but it would have been a bit of a weird word to use in that situation. So yeah, that makes total sense.
But to me, it wasn't. I had never heard it called anything other than the word rotary. And somebody said, what the heck is a rotary?
Yeah, Wormy just said, yeah, you can figure from context, but the thing is, you shouldn't have to with some things. And somebody from another area would read it and go, what the hell are they talking about there? That's like, it makes sense, but it's the wrong word. And if you're writing for a non-local audience, you're writing for the whole world, it needs to make sense to as many of them as you can.
Yep. I actually, even within New England, I worked for a period of time in Massachusetts, and my coworker was showing off pictures of his new grandson, and I said, "Oh, he's so cunning." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm just going to assume that was a compliment." I was like, "Oh, that's right. You don't have that word here." Um, yeah, Wormy says I thought Rotary was a club, but yeah, cunning. Cunning in Maine means cute, but in a very specific way, achievable only by puppies and babies.
Like kawaii,
It's
that
a, it's
kind
a
of.
it's a very specific. Yeah, it's cunning. Cunnin apostrophe, I think. Yeah, we have a lot of very weird terms up here. Aeon exists up here, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist anywhere else.
So, with editing RPG books, is there a particular kind of RPG book where you think editing is more important?
Um, no,
Like adventures or rule books or particular genres? Anything that.
not really. I mean, I think the type of editing is probably different. Um, I think if you're doing an adventure or a supplement, it's proofreading would be fine, but you also need to make sure that it lines up. Man, I have not actually done an adventure, and now I'm going to have to think about this now that you've mentioned it. Because now that I'm thinking about it, like I said, I always check and make sure the rules actually work in practice, at least, at the surface level. But doing a supplement also means you have to go back to the core book and make sure that it matches up with the core book rules. So, like, I mean, if somebody was doing I don't know, an adventure or supplement for Shadow Dark, I own that. That wouldn't be a big deal. I know the system pretty well. But if somebody is doing a supplement for game I don't own and I'm not familiar with, they would probably have to buy me a copy of the book, at least to start with. Or they would just have to sign off saying, I don't take any responsibility if the rules to this don't match.
I imagine you've got quite an extensive library of RPG books, though. So if it's something for a reasonably well-known game, you've probably got the rules.
Actually, my library is much more extensive with stuff that nobody's ever heard of. I do, however, have a lot of friends I can borrow most books from. But I mean, Palladium, for instance, I did some riffs like longer ago than I really want to consider. But I don't know the system well, and I haven't even looked at the book in 25 years. And I don't know that I know anyone who owns a copy. And it's a pretty complicated system.
So in instances like that, would you still take on the work with a caveat, or would you turn it down and suggest another editor, perhaps?
I would let them know that this was a concern. I would tell them that they have a choice between finding someone more familiar with the system who also doesn't mind going through and figuring out if all their commas in the right place. I would offer to split the job. Like I'll proofread and somebody else can do the line editing. They can buy me a copy of the book and give me a deadline that makes that reasonable. Or they can just take it to somebody else. Or like I said, I would put in the contract, this is only for this supplement as written. There is an understanding that there's no guarantee this will line up with core rules or something to that effect. I'd find fancier language, but I mean, I always have a section in my statement of work contracts that say, this is exactly what we've agreed for me to do, and this is exactly what we've agreed I'm not going to do.
Yeah, so the client would be fully aware of the situation if you did go
Yep.
ahead with it, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I like to make sure everybody knows what they're getting into, me included.
So I'm going to try and find a suitable question to follow on from that, because actually
Chat,
the
this is
sort of
the quietest you guys have ever been.
yeah, chat, feel free to throw your questions at us. It's quiet. I can see your questions even without a super chat. Obviously, if you want to send a super chat to help Goat with her medical bills, that would be massively appreciated. But just throw your questions in the chat and we'll ask them. But then, anyway, in terms of the dealing with the client side, I think we've sort of covered what a client can do to get the best out of you. If the client is kind of nervous because they haven't dealt with an editor before, how do you handle that sort of client? How would you try and reduce their nervousness or hesitation to
Um,
work with somebody else?
I always try and figure out what it is they're nervous about. This is my old counseling background coming out. You have to work with people where they're at. I have already tried to make certain that people understand that there will be a contract, that I don't have to see the whole book before they sign on. I try and make sure they understand the definitions so they understand what it is they're getting. I always show them the statement of work before it gets signed by anyone to make sure they don't have any questions. There's usually pretty extensive back and forth as to what they're looking for, what their expectations are, and whether or not I can meet those expectations. Um, if they are nervous about what if my game really sucks, uh, um, usually I'll tell them, if nothing else, ideas aren't bad. Uh, I've had conversations with people about the fact that your game isn't bad, but how you talk about your game is difficult. And sometimes I will offer to do things like do it a paragraph or two at a time so that, or not a paragraph, but like a chapter or two at a time, so that they're not getting flooded with like, here's 426 notes.
Yeah.
Um, because let me tell you, I've had at least 2 cases where people were like, no, I want you to nitpick this. And I said, are you really sure? Because like I could break this down so that it's not so overwhelming when you get it back. And in both cases, they were like, no, I want it nitpicked. I want the whole thing. Like, I have a thick skin, I can handle it. And both times, I think the project got abandoned completely. Or either that, or one time I think it was abandoned. I'm pretty sure it was abandoned completely. And the other time they was a chapter job, so they may just have chosen to go with someone else for the rest of their chapters.
So if an editor says that they should probably give you it in more bite-sized pieces, then let them, would be the advice I'd take from that.
Um, Again, it depends on what they're nervous about. Um, the 2 major ones are I'm nervous about whether or not my game's any good. And the other one is I'm nervous about turning this thing I've worked over to into someone I know off the internet.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wormy has said in the chat sometimes stuff is bad though, and they're right. Sometimes stuff is bad. So how would you handle when you've had something submitted to you that is just bad?
couple options. I have had cases where I did Zoom meetings with people and I said, look, I've read your stuff over. There's really some significant problems with it. Here are overarching issues. If you would like, you can take it back, fix those issues, and then I will resume the edit. So I give them the choice. In once and only once, I refunded the person's entire payment, gave them back the document, and said, I can't do this.
So yeah, if you are worried your work is bad, I mean, send it
90,
over anyway, because then
90,
it's going to be handled with that.
99, 99% of the time, it is very rare that everything is bad. There may be issues with a system, there may be issues with the writing, there may be issues with the layout. But it's very rare that you get, if somebody's put that much time into something, it's very rare that there aren't some good sections. And I will try and pull those out and say, these are really, really good. Like, keep this, make more of your stuff look like this. Your game doesn't have to be for idiots, but you do need to discuss it in a way that people are going to know whether or not they want to buy your game to even read it. The only case where I have returned it because it was completely unsalvageable in any way, shape, or form was a guy who decided he was going to try his hand at writing smut, and he very obviously had never seen a woman naked.
I
Like
would actually love to read his manuscript
there
because
were
it
there
sounds
were
like it would be hilarious. But
oh, it was very funny. Don't get me wrong. It was very funny, but it was totally unsalvageable.
so
Oh
you
yeah.
handle it tactfully though when these things happen, and you give constructive feedback. It's never a case of your book is bad and you should feel bad. It's these are the issues and this is what you need to do before I continue editing it, and then they can go away and fix it and come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of that guy who I did just say like, look, this everything about this needs to be reworked. You should just rewrite it. Uh, and I felt bad about doing that. What I really wanted to say was come back when you've actually had sex. Um, yeah.
And this is handling tact.
Oh yeah. I mean, like we're talking like mutations and both parties being double jointed in every joint might have gotten you through some of the scenes, but yeah, it was very entertaining.
So Yarnwich Live has asked what part of editing do you enjoy the most? I imagine it was reading that book.
What part of editing do I enjoy most? Um,
I am just going to say to the chat there is a significant delay between what's coming up on your end and what we're saying, because I can see my mouth moving when I'm not talking. So there will
yeah,
be
there's
some
always
delay after you send your message before it gets asked.
yeah, it's a bit entertaining. The chat goes to YouTube before it comes to us, but our talking is long before
Oh,
YouTube. Though I have to say,
I'm looking
I've
at the chat on YouTube, so when it comes up, I'll ask it. Um, Wormy
I
Spooner has seen your question as well, so we'll get to that. But
I do have to say I've had bigger legs than this, so it's not too
yeah,
bad.
there is
Um,
quite a big lag, so don't ask a question and then decide that we're not going to answer it and disappear. Stick around; it will get asked.
um,
So,
so
which part of
this is
editing
this
do
is a
you
bit
enjoy the
this is
most?
a bit
Is
tongue
the
in cheek, but
question.
I can't think of any other way to phrase it. When it's over. Um, and that's not like I don't like the job and I want it done. It's that I'm very goal driven and I love tasks being finished. It's not that I don't
So,
enjoy the process. It's that I'm one of those people who like writes out a list every day and loves to just cross things off. Not because I really need the memory boost, but just because I enjoy crossing things off.
you
Um,
enjoy the sense of completion when the job is done.
I do. Um, and then I really also love somebody that I did a job for recently just emailed me a snapshot of the fact that his book is just leaving the printer in I don't know China or wherever it's getting printed. And he's all excited because this is his first book, and it's like coming in and it's done and it's been printed and now he's just waiting on it. Um, so I get excited by other people's excitement, and the fact that they're thrilled about their book being complete. But as far as just my part goes, I love the completion. I love knowing I did the best job I could. And hello, Yarn Witch.
And we've got a question from Wormy Spoons, which is: do you take the first two mid to an end to of books or scripts? I don't know if I would send the last 2 pages of a story.
No, you don't want to do that because that can sometimes screw up my. So what I do usually do with novels is I do an initial read through, and anything that's really major, I just make notes. Um, and then I go back through. So like people who do novels will sometimes end up with notes that like uh, I'm very confused by this sentence, and then there'll be a second note that says follow up or second read through.
Oh, this, I
Okay,
think this would have been in relation to when you're giving a quote, though. You ask for the first couple of pages, the middle couple of pages, and the
no,
last
no, I
couple.
I, I
So
understand that.
that's
I'm
more
I'm
for RPG, is it? Or
Simon. I'm getting there. I'm long-winded. Deal with it. Um, I can't if I have the last two pages. I can't do that way. So yes, novels I do not take the last two pages. I'm trying to explain why I don't take the last two pages because it screws up my my read through process.
spoils the
Usually,
ending as well.
yeah, usually what I will do with novels is say give me the first chapter or the first X number of words.
I suppose with a novel, it's going to be more or less similar all the way through, rather than
Yep.
with an RPG book where you might have some fluff for the setting at the beginning and then character creation somewhere in the middle and tables at the end, maybe.
Um, yeah, I would say the exception is that sometimes you get people who obviously got tired as they were writing. Like they started out with a really good story idea, but then like there comes a point where it begins to feel really forced. But that's just kind of the nature of writing.
I feel like that's sometimes an issue when people are working to a deadline with writing as well.
Yep. Yeah, I would say that's fair.
I have another question from Yarnwich Live, which is what's one thing you wish more people would do before turning a manuscript over to you for editing? I think we've sort of covered this earlier on. But if you could just pick one thing that
Um,
would
I would
the
say
most.
read it out loud, or get someone to read it out loud to you, or get the program to read it out loud to you, because there are a lot of things that you'll notice with audio that you will not notice visually.
Well, Yarnwich, that was covered quite extensively just before you got here. So I would suggest watching the replay of this afterwards to get a much more in-depth answer to your question there. But
I think she always does actually. But it is good to see her because sometimes she does not act. Sometimes she is not actually a live witch. Sometimes she is a replay witch.
so how do you handle disagreements? Like if an author's attached to every sentence, for example.
It's their project. I mean, I can explain to them why I think it. I can explain to them what I think it how I think it is a detriment to their project. Um, I can explain to them what I think will happen if they leave it. Um, but it's in the end, it's their project.
So
Um,
they don't have to accept all of the edits, but
no, of course not.
they. And so how would they? So let's say someone's hiring an editor, not necessarily you, but an editor. How should they decide whether to accept or reject an edit as an author?
Um, I mean, in a perfect world where they were being objective, um, I think so. Okay, so I try very hard to phrase my notes softly, shall I say. Um, if I said this sentence sucks, cut it, or cut this sentence, um, it is going to feel very harsh, especially if it's a sentence that they're really proud of. Um, and so sometimes I will say things like, this is a great sentence, but it doesn't fit here. You should save it for another project. Um, I think that makes it a little easier to take. And it reminds them that, just because something doesn't work here doesn't mean it doesn't work at all. Um, and after that, I think, I try very hard to make sure that my notes are all based on this is your project, this is your voice. I am just trying to clean it up, and some of this is going to be subjective. And then they just have to make their own decisions. Um, there isn't, there's not a great answer to that because if they're subjectively attached to everything, they're not going to listen to anything I have to say. If they are willing to listen to objective, this is why this doesn't work in this place, um, then they can just decide whether or not they agree. Um, I will say that if I get somebody who has a lot of stuff, I will usually do explanations for the first several, and then I will just say, see above note. Because I can only say, this seems I did not mean this for this to be a joke, but it is. I can only say this section is repetitive so many times. Um,
Is stuff being repetitive quite a common issue that you come across?
um,
Ironically, because repetition being a common issue would be repetition of repetition.
uh, it depends on the book, or the game. Very long. If it's a story, it's fairly rare. If it's a game and it's a really long game, sometimes you get uh, a piece that could fit under multiple chapters. So let's say uh, fire damage in a system. They've already written it into like the combat rules, but then they forget that they wrote it into the combat rules, and they also write it 6 chapters later under additional types of damage. So games, especially longer games, can sometimes end up with that. Or sometimes you can tell where somebody quit writing for a day, and then came back several days later because they'll pick up and like they'll repeat themselves. Something that they wrote 3 pages before. Um, we have
And this
a
is something
we have
where
a
an
we have
editor
a we have a
would be able
mutual
to read it
friend.
and they'll spot it.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry, this is something where hiring an editor would mean that it would get picked up and spotted.
Yeah, it's, hey, you said this. You just said this. Like just.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people intentionally will put things like fire damage in 2 places. And I'm always like, well, you can do that, but that's going to make it harder for people to look up rules. Make sure you have a really good index. But sometimes, like I said, there are some times where you read something. I am thinking specifically of a game written by a mutual acquaintance. And you can tell where they stopped writing one day and came back a couple days later and picked up kind of in the middle of a chapter, but there's a lot of like common ground between the two.
So Wormy Spoonies, Wormy Spoons, not Wormy Spoony. Wormy Spoons has asked what are common, let's say, mistakes you see as an editor, such as starting at the end and then jumping back 3 weeks. I would probably say that's not necessarily a mistake. That's someone trying to be Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I was going to say that is a mistake implies they didn't do it on purpose. Um, that's them being cliche. As far as mistakes go, the most common mistake I see in novels is an overuse of adjectives and adverbs, and the word that. People love the word that. Um,
So
the
if
most
something is a cliche, though, would you highlight it or would you just accept that they've written a bunch of cliches and edit it anyway?
um, I mean, cliches sometimes work. That's why they're cliches. So I guess it would depend on how severe the cliche was and whether or not it actually fits. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well,
Uh,
Hamster said it is the difference between a mistake and a bad decision. Would you agree with that?
uh, well, the thing is that just because it's a cliche doesn't always mean it is a bad decision. Um, unless it makes you roll your eyes. So the video game, Last of Us has, an older guy taking care of a younger girl and like guiding her to safety. That's a very common trope for a lot of things, for books, for movies. The Road did the same thing, both book and movie. Older guy with, keeping a kid safe and getting them from point A to point B. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean they were badly done. The Road is very good, both the book and the movie.
Oh, I
The
remember
first
Resident
Last of
Evil
Us.
4 constantly trying to kill the kid because it was so annoying.
Say that again?
Resident Evil 4, I think it was. You have to be an adult looking after a kid, and they're just constantly like, "Help me, Leon."
Oh,
No,
I haven't played 4. Uh,
it's irritating, let's say, and you end up wanting to shoot the kid, but you can't.
yeah, there are definitely video games where I'm just like, yeah, I'd tell me this character dies by the end. Hello, Rio, welcome.
We have
Um,
a question from Goofus the Doofus. Thank you again for the super chat there. Just for everyone else, if you've only recently tuned in, we are prioritizing super chats when asking questions. I have a list of 705 questions to ask Goat. I'm not going to ask her all of them, but I am going to be going through my list of questions and picking things that I feel are relevant to things that have just been said, etc. But if you do have a question, pop it in the chat. You don't have to super chat, but we won't necessarily see it if you don't. If you super chat, we can see it. Also, Goat's got a few medical bills coming up, and it would be really appreciated if you can send a super chat or a Ko-Fi. There's a Ko-Fi link pinned at the top of the chat.
yes.
If you feel that you're getting some value from this stream, you're enjoying yourself, learning some things, drop a couple of bucks just to show your support and to help someone out who really could do with the cash right now.
I want to
I'm not
say
taking
thank
anything out
you.
of this, by the way. It's just Goat that's getting it. So
I want to say thank you very much to Bad Toad Games who just sent me $5 on Kofi or Coffee or I need to decide how that's pronounced. Except I'm pretty sure whatever I decide it'll be wrong.
I reckon it's Ko-Fi, like sci-fi.
You think it's Ko-Fi, not Kofi?
Well, it could be coffee.
Well, I thought it was originally because there's another similar um,
Yeah,
site,
there's buymeacoffee.com or something.
right? So I kind of thought that was supposed to be a spin-off of that, but I could be wrong.
Um, Goofus the Doofus, anyway, has asked, what's the secret to having healthy horns? Do you have a horn care routine?
Secret to healthy horns. I mean, not letting people burn them off is a good start.
People
Uh,
do that?
yeah, it's really common, especially in the U.S. Um, it is actually illegal in most of the United States to show goats if they have horns. Um, don't clunk heads with someone that's got thicker horns too often, or yours might break. And rub them up against trees a lot so they get really shiny. Those are my healthy horn secrets. And make sure you get proper nutrition, of course.
Oh yeah, healthy diet will presumably help. Let's quickly check the chat, see if we've got any other messages to cover. Ryo said evening, been here a while, just too tired to message further. So there's going to be a few people who are here watching or listening and aren't in the chat, and that's fine. Hope you're enjoying listening. You don't have to chat if you are knackered or tired, or if you just don't fancy chatting. But we do like to have people say hi, just so that we know who's watching.
Oh, Battery H gets any question they want answered that it does not involve my phone number or address. Thank you very much. That was an amazing. Oh, I appreciate you greatly. Battery H has just donated $100 over however we pronounce this thing.
Thank you very much, Battery.
Thank you. I can now afford to walk through the door of my neurological appointment. It is literally $100 for me to even walk through the door to get that test done.
Yeah. No, I've been talking to Goat about these things, and she's been stressing a lot about the money, and I have pointed out to her that she has got a fantastic herd who support each other.
I do. I have the best herd ever.
So to not worry, because we will all help her as much as we're able to. I know times are tough for some people, but people like Battery, I appreciate you. Goat appreciates you. We all appreciate you.
This does not in any way, shape, or form, by the way, imply that, you know, $2, $5, $10, $20 are not
No,
just
they're all very
not
much
just they're
appreciated.
not just well, and they're just as important. I mean, every little bit.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
everyone coming together as a community to help out when people need it. And
Yep.
I would also say that, I mean, if you've seen any of the streams I've been on, I bring up there's the Percy family give, send, go thing, and I'll give a shout out to that on the streams, and I have donated money to that myself. You know, if anyone's in need, to say so, because it's a community, and to try and help those that need each other, and those, when you're in need, people will help you.
Yep. We all rise together.
So Battery said, as someone who raises money for charities, let me restate that every single dollar helps, and that's right.
It really does. Yeah. And you know, I this is I come from one of those backgrounds where, like, you know, bootstraps are kind of the thing. But like all of last year was really hard, so we started this year pretty tapped out, and these medical bills are going to be very high even with insurance. And if there's a very good chance that I may have to go back under the knife at least once, which means I won't be able to work during that period of time. So yes, every single dollar really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and obviously we'll do our best to look after you during that time as we're able to.
The hardest part about that will be if I like do another one of those you're not allowed to do anything for 6 months. The last time they told me, "Oh yeah, for 6 weeks you can't do anything." My mother-in-law basically had to come over and sit on me because I can't stand to sit still that long.
Yeah, I can't imagine you just sitting there not doing anything. That doesn't sound um
I
doesn't
I
sound like
learned
you.
I learned to crochet, so I could at least keep my hands busy. Um, yeah, I had not picked up a crochet needle in 40 years, I think. Um, and she showed up with a bag of yarn and and a needle. She's like, "This you're allowed to do." The first time I had to have surgery was the year Gloomhaven came out, I think. Um, and I was really interested in the game, but all the stores kept it on the bottom shelf, and it literally was over my weight allowance. I literally could not pick the board game up without splitting stitches open to look at the game. Ah, Hamster, you just have to use your imagination more. All right, what else we got for questions? How many of these 700 have we gone through?
Right. So, Hamster, feel free to. Battery, feel free to ask any questions you like. Everyone else, ask any questions that you like because, this is a Q&A session as well as being a bit of an interview. So let's look at some maybe some more common mistakes that people do, so that they can, when people are editing their own work, they can look for specific things. There aren't any common sort of grammar mistakes or punctuation mistakes that you see a lot.
Um, there are, but I think the overuse of adjectives and adverbs in novels is more. I think it. I think there are more readers that it bothers. I would say the most common, like grammar punctuation mistake I see. Um, People are never really sure. Okay, so you have two sentences or two chunks of a sentence connected by the word and people are never sure whether or not to use a comma before the and. Um, and the
The
rule,
Oxford comma, isn't it?
say again?
Isn't that the Oxford comma?
No, Oxford comma is if you have, um, I like objects A, B, and C. So it would be A, comma, B, comma, and C. The Oxford comma is the one before the and. What I'm talking about is something like Jack ran up the hill and Jill ran down it.
Oh, I see. There's no comma before and.
No, actually there is.
Is there?
Yep, because the rule is that if you have two complete sentences connected by the word and, there is a comma. If you have a sentence and a partial sentence connected by the word and, there is no comma.
Well, there we go. I've learned something. I always thought my use of the English language was very good, but there's something I've learned here. Well, I
Um,
say my use of the written use of the English language. I swear a lot in spoken English.
I mean, again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's incorrect usage. The Oxford comma is the one you write in English, not in stupid. The funny thing about the Oxford comma is the Oxford comma comes from England, and yet Americans use it more commonly than the English do. I do a lot of editing for people in England, and I have to remember the spelling differences, and I have to remember not to correct the Oxford comma when it's missing. Um,
The Oxford comma is optional, isn't it?
it depends on where you are. In America, it is a common. It is the normal punctuation is for the Oxford comma to be included. Um, the other thing is that again, I don't do technical stuff, but some of the stuff I write is technical, or the research I have to do for it comes from technical journals. Um, there are also layout differences in sentences depending on certain types of research. Um, okay, I'm
I'm,
sorry.
I'm,
Driving and
I'm
Dragons
going to
is
answer Driving and Dragons. The worst punctuation mark is the interrobang.
Driving and Dragons is going to have to like get a timeout here.
We have a question from Battery though, so I'd like to
Yep.
quickly get to that. Given that they did donate over Ko-fi. You've probably already answered this, but have you ever run across a stubborn author who ended up thanking you for saving their work? And that was them in their undergraduate thesis.
Um, I don't know that anyone has ever specifically thanked me for saving their work. Um, I did have someone that I had to have the whole conversation about, like, it's not that your game is bad, it's the way you talk about your game. Um, and I think they were only being stubborn because they thought I was saying the game was bad or they needed to dumb it down. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with the system. You don't need to dumb it down. You just need to not go out of your way to talk about it in a way that is as complex as you are. Um, the M dash when used appropriately is wonderful. It's just that no one knows how to use it appropriately.
ChatGPT knows how to use it appropriately and loves to overuse it.
Well, but then that's not appropriate. It's not
Well,
appropriate if it's overused.
it's appropriate if it's using it in the right context and it forces those right contexts.
Um, Sometimes it actually will also point out to the writer that they are phrasing their sentences too similarly. If your sentence always has a break or a lot of the time has a break in it that requires an M dash, it means you need to change up the way your sentences are structured.
Is sentence structure something that you look at as an editor, like varying the structure of sentences to make it easier to read rather than having the repetition? I guess we're coming back to repetition,
Uh,
repeating that.
Again, it depends a little bit on what it is I'm editing. So for instance, when I do newsletters have to fit a lot of information in a very small space, and that kind of repetition is very distracting and very noticeable. So I will definitely mention it there. There are some games where it's intentional, like someone starts a paragraph in a similar way several times because they're trying to like make the rules stick in your brain easier. Novelists, very frequently, I'm much more concerned about the fact that they've got a sentence that takes up 6 lines.
So,
It's
sorry, carry on. I thought you'd
oh
finished
no,
that.
that's nope, that's pretty much it.
So, again, looking at structure. So when people have like box text or read aloud text or flavor text, and they've got like a separate bit that's not part of the main body of text, for example.
You're talking about like side panels?
Yeah, side panels, I suppose. What would you consider makes those things too long or sound unnatural or not really fit?
A lot of the times that is all right, how do I say this? A lot of times the layout makes a difference. So for instance, there are role-playing games where there will be an entire page that gives examples of how something works by having showing actual characters playing through. And there'll be a border around it, it'll be in italics. Like it is obviously not part of the main thing. It's bigger than an actual sidebar, but they've made a point to make it stand out so it's not confusing. Um, a sidebar that takes up, more than a page. I've seen people try and do sidebars that like overlap onto the next page. I hate that. And I've seen people who do footnotes that are like the entire bottom third of the page. And that doesn't work except in really comedic stuff like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think that one.
I've seen. So I think it was Alistair Crowley has got a few footnotes like that.
Yeah, and again, it's a personal preference. It depends a lot on what you're writing. If you're writing a fantasy novel, nobody wants that kind of interruption.
Yeah.
Um, unless, again, it's something like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where part of the joke is the footnotes. This is what I meant when I said the disclaimer that, like, there's just there are so many different types of things you can write and so many different genres, and there very frequently tend to be, well, in this case, yes, but in this case, no kind of things. I was once asked, what is your favorite music video and why is it word crimes? I do love that song. Uh,
Which queen? You're pronouncing it holy because you're a Thelemite.
where are we at in the?
I'm just looking at because I said Crowley.
Uh,
Um, I
wait,
may
are we
be
talking?
mispronouncing it, but who cares? Um,
Wait,
it was
what are
it
we?
was a comment on my pronunciation of something I gave as an example. We have a question from Bad
Are we
Toad
talking like
Game.
Good Omens? Because I have always pronounced it
Yeah,
Crowley.
yeah.
I've always pronounced it Crowley, and everyone I know has always pronounced it Crowley.
Oh, okay. Crowley like holy or moly. Not you're not calling him holy because you're a Thelemite. It
No, no, no.
sounds like holy.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
I don't. Yeah, I no. That I don't like that. That literally would take away my enjoyment of that book. It is, and forever will be Crowley in my head. Wormy Spoons had a
So
question.
Bad Toad Games has asked if you purchase a book or game that you didn't edit, does it hamper your enjoyment when you notice errors if there are more than a few?
Absolutely. Um, I honestly have gotten to the point now where I have trouble watching movies. And this is one of the reasons I try so hard to avoid all of the channels that just like nitpick things that they don't like. Because when I was watching a lot of them, I found that when I went to movies, even if I hadn't seen the reviews, uh, I couldn't just enjoy the movie. um, yeah, it definitely does, especially if they're really outrageous things like people really overusing adjectives. Yeah. I mean, probably if someone didn't use their commas right, it wouldn't be too bad as long as it wasn't crazy. But if you get somebody that's got a lot of spelling errors or they've got a lot of um, dialogue is a really big one. People have a very hard time writing dialogue if they're a new author. And that really, I find that very jarring if it's not well done.
Oh, yeah, I find dialogue jarring often. Um,
Wormy Spoons
I'm
had a
I'm not an
question.
editor, and I find that jarring.
Yeah. Wormy Spoons had a question quite a ways back. What is an M-4? So I'm going to try and make this really brief because the subtlety, there's some subtlety in the difference. So first of all, what most people call an M dash is not an M dash. It's an N dash. And most people use N dashes EN where they should use MEM dashes. I might need to bring up a screen. This may require a visual. Uh, all right, Wormy, I'm coming back to this. I gotta like bring up words so that I can like answer the question properly. Um, and Simon can ask me another question in the meantime.
Is a hyphen the same as an N dash?
No. Um, they look similar. though I think most people tend to write hyphens as N dashes EN. Um, this is why I'm writing this out because I don't I don't want to have to keep spelling out N versus EN, N versus. Um,
Okay, well, if you're trying to write an example of something,
well, I was bringing up Word first, but yes.
yeah, let's give you a chance to do that, and I'll interact with the chat. So, Wormy Spoons is more confused. So hopefully we'll be able to answer that shortly. I'll just briefly explain again for anyone who's new, because I've seen the watch count changing a little bit over the last 5-10 minutes. We are doing this stream as a part interview, part Q&A. So if you have any questions that you would like the Eclectic Goat to answer as an editor, professional editor, then feel free to pop them in the chat. We are trying to answer all questions, but we are prioritizing things that come through as a super chat, in part because it gets highlighted by YouTube, which means that we definitely see it, but also we're trying to raise some funds for some medical costs that the Eclectic Goat has coming up as well, so any help towards that is appreciated. It's not necessary though, you can just post questions in chat and we will try to get to them. So how are you coming along with your screen share, Goat?
Give me a second. I just remembered that I just did a newsletter edit quite recently that had examples of almost all of these, so I'm just doing some cut and pasting rather than trying to make this more complicated than it might be otherwise. So this I can do while you keep talking.
So the Witch Queen of Summer has said, "I wish I could afford to give you some money, Goat." Obviously, it's fine if you can't. I know times are tough for everyone.
Oh yeah, I don't want to not be broke at the expense of other people being broke.
Yeah. And in the glass battery, that is whiskey. I can answer that one for you.
Oh, my whiskey glass.
Yeah. What's your favourite whiskey? That's one you could probably answer whilst multitasking.
Uh it has recently changed. Um so I and it also depends on how much money I have to spend. Um I was a big Maker's Mark fan for a while, especially like the higher, like the reserve stuff. Um but I wanted to try something different, and a friend of mine recently suggested Woodford Reserve, which is about the same price point as Maker's Mark, but tastes more like the Maker's Reserve. So, um, so I think that's my new favorite. I did also recently try Japanese whiskey, which was very interesting.
How so?
Um, Normally, like whiskey descriptions will have things like, has a smoky flavor or, oak barreled or whatever. Yes, there are differences in flavor, but they don't, like, if you just drank it, you would never say, oh, yeah, that's totally oak. Mainly because most people don't know what oak tastes like. Um, when Japanese whiskey says it tastes fruity, they are not joking. Um, I popped the cork on the bottle the first time, and it literally smelled like a fruit salad. Um, and it tasted very, very fruity. It's apparently designed mostly for highballs. I just realized that there were corrections I put in here that they didn't actually put in the newsletter.
So
Sorry.
driving in dragons has clarified that Woodford is not a wheater either. It's a classic bourbon. Makers is a wheater.
Woodford also has a rye and a wheat, but it is the bourbon that I primarily have been drinking. I really actually wanted to buy, I've not tried the rye, and I really wanted to buy a bottle while I still had the bourbon on hand, just so I could actually try them side by side and compare them. Okay. I need to copy this last one in, and
So I'm going to read out Wormy Spoon's last message
yep.
because I think it could do with highlighting. Speaking of whiskey, I have a big drinking problem. Got so bad I started drinking brake fluid. All of my friends said I have a problem, but I said it's fine. I can stop whenever I want.
Mm.
Brake fluid, get it?
Oh, I got it. Hamsta is in my chat on a regular basis. Trust me. I am I am very used to those comments.
Well, I enjoyed that joke. Thank you, Wormy.
Trying to find a good one that has commas, but apparently they were not heavy on the comma sentences in this particular newsletter. All right, we can go with what I got.
Okay, so we have a visual example. So if you're watching this in the background, now is the time to quickly go and have a look at the screen. Switch to this tab if you're on a browser and you're doing something else while you're listening.
Okay, so this is the newsletter that I actually have a contract with, so I have X'd out the name of the organization. Okay, so an N dash is this sentence here. This is also, you could also look at this as a hyphenated word. This one is actually wrong. This is an N, E-N dash. It is a single line. It is used for these brief clumps of words. It is the same as a hyphen in the sense that it is a single line, though hyphens are usually used to connect two words into a single thought, whereas 9 to 5 is a phrase. This should be an M dash. Whoops, hang on a second. Sometimes words will do this properly and sometimes it won't. Word should, if you make two N dashes, form a single line for an M dash. M dashes are used when you have a thought in the center of a sentence that is kind of an offshoot. You also can use commas that way, but commas separate out a sentence that is loosely part of the same thought. So the thought in this case is treat mom like royalty. That is your central core sentence. If you are adding to that sentence or that thought, that central thought, you would use commas. Because or yourself is outside the thought completely. Now you're talking about yourself instead of your mom. You use M dashes. It is a greater degree of separation. Parentheses are used if you are adding something in that has absolutely nothing to do with the thought whatsoever. It's like Parentheses are the old guy who's telling a story, but he keeps stopping in the middle of the story to go on to a completely different story. That's where parentheses come in.
And so if all of this is hurting your head and you don't understand what Goat is talking about, this is why you pay someone like the Eclectic Goat to do the editing, because it all makes sense to her.
I will say that the one area I think I am very different from most editors is that most editors will say you need an M dash here instead of commas, or you need commas instead of an M dash. I will tell you why, because my goal is that in the long run you will become a better writer. You know, it's like police who say, I would be happy if there were no need for my job. I would be very happy if, you know, everyone got so good at grammar that there was no need for my job.
Yeah.
But with the advent of cell phones, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I'm not sure how this is pronounced. Zogaran? Could you say 5 must have to play published campaigns? Don't
Hang
need
on a
to be
second.
for a specific rule system. I suppose any modules or adventures that you've particularly enjoyed for any system.
Hang on a second. I just do want to touch this real quick. If I recall, the actual difference is an M dash represents a lengthy pause, while an N dash connects two words or represents a hard syllable break. N dashes tie a phrase together. M dashes do represent a lengthy pause, but I find that people have difficulty saying, well, is this pause lengthy or not? So I find it's much easier to explain it as every sentence makes up an individual thought. If you have a chunk in the middle that is not part of that thought, you use either commas, M dashes, or parentheses, depending on how much that central portion does not represent the overall thought. Usually when I have people's own work in front of them, it's easier to explain because I can say, like, you had this thought in this sentence, and they'll say yes. I say, well, this section is not part of that thought, therefore it needs to be separated out.
Driving and Dragons has said actually M dashes represent pretentious commas.
Except they don't. Commas are for loosely affiliated parts of the thought, and M dashes are separate thoughts. I have found if you have 3 or more single malt scotches, people think you're sophisticated. If you have 3 or more bourbons, people think you're a drunk.
Singles or doubles?
I mean, I don't think I've ever been able to afford scotch, so... And I think the one time someone else gave me a swallow, I was like, a really good bourbon costs a third of this and tastes about the same. Okay. Could you say 5 must have to play published campaigns? Don't need to be for specific rule systems. Okay. So I am not crazy about pre-made adventures. What creativity I have really is put entirely into making my own adventures, so I don't tend to use them. I would say that, in my opinion, the best pre-made campaign I have ever played or run is that Shadow of the Demon Lord has a mega dungeon called Dungeons of the Damned that is both available on Foundry and available in print. It's excellent. It doesn't railroad you at all. It's basically just a big open space and you go do whatever you want, and there's kind of stuff put in here and there.
I feel like
T-
when we've done reviews, we've used Shadow of the Demon Lord as a yardstick for measuring good games as well. So
I was gonna say because he's really good at it.
yeah,
Um, Tiny D10 has a game that is great for like one shots or conventions called The Broken Light, which I really love because the system is perfect for getting new gamers of any age involved. And The Broken Light is both um, good at getting your adrenaline up without including anything that's like scary for small children. Trying to think what else I've actually done for campaigns.
that is a feature of Tiny D10 though. Is it is very family friendly.
It is that adventure specifically though, even if you weren't running it in Tiny D10, um, I think is really good. Um,
Definitely earning the eclectic in your name, like you go from Shadow of the Demon Lord to family friendly.
um, well, understand I just sent in my descriptions for PortCon, and I do the one time I do tend to use pre-made adventures is for conventions because if I'm showing off indie games, it's very difficult for me to come up with like 12 different adventures for 12 different game systems. It's hard enough to sit there and go, okay, is does this game involve perception? I can't remember if perception is in this game. um, there is a, I think they're from Germany, but I wouldn't swear to it. There's a company called Vortex Verlag. They have two games out. I have not played the second one, um, but the first one is called The Straightway Lost, and I run the first chapter of it at conventions as a teaser adventure. It's set in historical Renaissance. It's a historical fantasy, but it is set in Renaissance Italy. They actually had experts on that portion of history that um, wrote. Uh, like they came in, they researched, they gave them like historically accurate maps, they gave them information on, like most of the NPCs are people that actually existed. They've done the stats on those people as close as they can based on what was written about them. Um, and you basically start off forming up your party around a murder mystery, and you end it in Dante's Inferno. Um, so you can run like the first chapter as a one shot, or you can run the entire thing in a campaign that I am pretty sure would take at least a year.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it's amazing. I would love to actually be able to do the entire thing. It's very well done. And it is you can get it for Ars Magica or you can get it as a modified 5e game. It is the only 5e game I have ever run that I enjoyed, mainly because in order to make Renaissance Italy historically accurate, they have to take out all of the crap I don't like. You cannot be an overpowered superhero in Renaissance Italy and have it make any sense. Um, but the basic system is the same. Um, what else do I really enjoy running? Trying to think. I don't think I've ever have I ever played a pre-made. Trying to think if I've ever played a pre-made. Um, Numenera does a lot of good setting stuff. They don't really, I mean, they do some adventures, but they do settings that are really good. Um, Especially the early ones. The later ones, kind of like the power up got kind of bad, but the early ones are pretty good. Um, I don't think I could specifically recommend a specific supplement. Um, Mainly because there are too many of them I like. Um,
We've
Speaking of
got
whiskey, I've just been given one.
we've got about 20 people watching, give or take one or two. It keeps flipping up and down. We've only got 5 likes on the stream though. Everyone quickly go and tap the like button just because it does signal to YouTube that people are enjoying the content. And
It
I
it
know some
helps
of you have been here for quite a while.
it helps YouTube find us.
Yeah, if you could just quickly tap that like button, it would be very much appreciated just for helping other people find the content that you enjoy. Um,
Oh, Battery has made another donation. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Battery.
I am feeling a bit overwhelmed. um, and Cezetta, I'm sorry, I don't
Uh,
know who that translates to onto the chat, but
alleged
thank you very
red
much.
pirate something that cuts it off.
I'm sorry, say again.
It's showing up as alleged dread pirate something. It cuts off their name on the feed that I can see.
I
They,
think I'm
they
not.
go,
I think I'm not far enough. I think I'm way behind on the comments. So,
no, this
uh,
this is on Wi-Fi.
I didn't know you could see it. So,
I can see
um,
the public feed, which.
I only have so many screens up at a time.
So
Um,
for those that
it,
have just joined us, because the stream count has gone up fairly recently, doing a part interview, part Q&A. So you can get your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer anything that gets posted in the chat. Priority will be given to people who send a super chat or who send a donation through Ko-Fi, which is linked and pinned at the top of the chat. Reason being is firstly that it gets highlighted, so we're more able to see it. But also, the Eclectic Goat has got some medical bills coming up, which hopefully we can come together as a community to try and help with. And every small amount does really add up and help. So, let's just have a quick look at the chat and see if we've got any more questions. But you can just put a question in the chat without any sort of super chat or anything. You don't feel that you have to. If you want us to read it out, we will try and get to questions as they get posted. There's a lot of discussion of whiskey going on in the chat as well. Feel free to get your opinions in on that if you're a whiskey drinker. I'm not, so I can't comment on what people are saying there. Perhaps go if you'd like to quickly check the chat and give your opinion on some of what people are saying here. Are you still with us, the Eclectic Goat? Am I still with you?
I apologize. Apparently, I accidentally hit the mute button. Um,
Well, we've all done it.
the new headset that replaced the old ones that the rabbit ate. There's a button on the side, and my hair. I'm gonna have to get a haircut. My hair is long enough; it will catch it. Um, and yeah. So sometimes I just don't even realize that I've hit it. Okay, so
So action
action
tactics
tactics.
roleplay. We've got a Ko-Fi link at the top of the chat. Ko-fi.com/the Eclectic Goat, or one word. That's generally the best way to send some money over because they take less of a cut than YouTube does. You can also do a YouTube super chat because the Eclectic Goat's channel is monetized and you can get the money from YouTube as well.
And there are memberships because there are baby goat videos for people that like memberships.
Yes, membership is always a good thing as well because it's a recurring monthly payment, which that helps knowing that you've got some monthly income when you're self-employed.
Driving and Dragons, this is really helpful. I've only seen Monkey Shoulder a couple of times, and I've thought about picking it up, but I couldn't find anyone that had ever drunk it, so I never quite took the plunge. So that's good to know. Hi, Jeff. 12 sessions of different games at a con. We should hang out and chat sometime. I mean, I do my best. It kind of depends on how long the convention is. I think I'm doing, let's see, 2, 4, 6. I'm doing 7 at PortCon. I'm not there on Thursday because hotel rooms in the Old Port are really expensive. And because they were pretty well full up on that day, so.
So, we've passed the 2 hour mark. I don't think we actually agreed on a length for this to go for. Would you want to go for 3 hours or?
I think 9 o'clock is probably my cutoff.
Okay, what time is it there at the moment?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got about 45 minutes left.
45 minutes. Okay. Well, then if anybody's got any questions that they would like to get in, now is the time to do so.
I mean, no
Just drop
pressure,
them in
but
the
I kind of expected Legatus would have more. Legatus is usually very good at coming up with questions.
If not, I do have a list of 705 questions, so I'll just start picking things from that.
Yeah, I had asked you how many we'd gone through, and I didn't get an answer. So.
Oh, I haven't been counting. I probably should have. But
Well, you said you were
instead,
going to
I've
mark them
been,
off, so.
instead I've been drinking beer and asking you questions. Right. So if somebody's going to do a public preview, or they, so that, for example, I think we had a recent thing that we reviewed where there's going to be a version of it sent out to Kickstarter backers that will be prior to it actually getting published, for example. How polished would you say that sort of preview edition should be?
Um, First, I want to thank Action Tactics for their donation.
Oh, thank you, Action Tactics.
You are greatly appreciated. Another one over on Coffee, or however we decided that went. I think someone definitively said it is coffee, so I'm just going to go with coffee.
It's got the hyphen like sci-fi, which doesn't
So
always have the hyphen.
this is purely personal opinion. There are a lot of people that are putting out like betas of games that you have to buy, and then you make suggestions and they make changes and you get the updates for free. I really hate those because number one, there's nothing that guarantees that you aren't going to give up in the middle of the game and say, well, screw it. Apparently, this isn't like ever coming together. Secondly, because it feels very much like the AAA video game tendency these days of putting out games with bugs in them and then just going, yeah, we'll patch it later. And what people I don't know, probably because I'm old, is that video game companies used to hire people to find the bugs in their game. I had a roommate whose brother worked for a PC gaming company, and he literally did nothing for like 15 hours a day but play video games and see if he could break them. Like that was his job. And that was kind of how people entered into developing games. So game developers became better because they saw what went wrong and ways people like games. So not hiring those people not only cut out an entire chunk of like the gaming industry, it also meant that you didn't have this lead in before you became a game designer. And I think that's really where a lot of game designers got not as good. Um, and it's literally now that you are now paying those companies to play test the game for them. Uh, and we've all seen kind of where the AAA gaming industry has gone. I fear that using those same type of tactics, as much as I want indie games to succeed, there's no reason you can't polish a game in other ways. And in order, I don't want your game to succeed at the cost of people mistrusting indie games overall because they say, well, I bought this game and it wasn't very good and it needed a lot of updates and they never got done. Because if somebody's just dipping their toe into indie gaming, one really bad experience can put them off and they just go back to 5e. If, on the other hand, you are giving a game away and saying, the first 100 people get free copies, send me your comments about the game, then basically what you're doing is just massive playtesting, just in a slightly different format. I do still think that there needs to be some polishing done ahead of time. I don't think that giving playtesters, most of whom will not have my experience or my players' experience, most of whom will not have any editing experience, I don't think handing them a copy of a book that hasn't seen an editor, hasn't seen any play testing, hasn't seen anything, I don't think that's very professional.
So it should be play tested by the writer and their friends, for example, before putting it out to be play tested by the public.
Yeah, playtesting should come in like 3 forms. There should be the playtesting where you run the game for your friends. That's your basic level. Is this system even going to work remotely? Do people enjoy it? Then there should be playtesting where someone else runs the game, and you can sit in a corner and take notes. You could be a player, but you're not at the head of the table. And that should be done with a group that is not part of Group A. This should be a group that is like seeing the book for the first time. And then you should have playtests where you are not involved at all. No one who's seen the book, no one who's been involved with the production should be involved at all. If you're being really formal about it, having specific questions or a specific write-up is really handy. I did a playtest. Oh, who was that for? Losing my train of thought here. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the company. Pelgrane. I did a playtest for Pelgrane. And they have a very specific form that they have playtesters fill out, that kind of breaks down characters and setting and how things played out. Probably the easiest playtest I've ever done because, it wasn't just a bunch of people, making notes on a piece of paper in the middle of the game where they might forget to write something down because there was a combat going on.
So it was very structured, would you say?
Yeah, and it gave them exactly the information they wanted to know, and it made sure that we didn't miss anything.
So is that something that you'd recommend that other game designers do with their playtesting?
I thought it was great. I don't know that it would be wonderful for a first-time game designer, um, unless you were using suggestions from someone who had done a bunch of games. Because I think if you're a first-time game designer and it's a first-time playtest like that, you're not going to know what questions to ask. Um, Pelgrane has a bunch of games and a bunch of playtests under their belt, and they probably have a good idea of where people tend to make comments.
Yeah, so it's presumably more prompting for the type of feedback that they know some people would give, but they want everyone to give it, so that they're not just
Exactly.
taking one person's comments and thinking that's what everyone thinks about it.
Right.
Bad Toad Games has just donated $5 on a super chat. Thank you, Bad Toad Games.
Thank you very
My
much.
brother Toad wished to donate again as he is absent due to potential tornadoes.
I mean, that is the best
I
excuse.
hope he's safe. I've got a friend who's in that area where there's a big tornado warning. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
worrying. The size of that tornado warning for today is scary.
yeah. Action
But
Tactics has a
that'll be in the same area.
Action Tactics has a really good point. One of the reasons that having those forms can be handy is that you're not going to be able to fix every single thing that every person doesn't like. Yes, one group may say, oh, we found this thing that no one else did that needs fixing. But most of the time, what you want to look at is in this category, what did the majority say? Not the outliers. Um, and having it broken down by categories allows you to specifically look at. I mean, for all I know, they run it through a system and look for keywords. But definitely, instead of just having like a write up where you're having to read the whole write up and go, okay, well, our NPC in this section didn't work for these people. I've got to read 500 more playtest forms to find out whether or not that came up anywhere else. As opposed to there's a character section, how did people feel about the NPCs? You're only looking at that section for 500 forms. And don't try and fix everything that every single person. You're going to get that one person who's just an asshole that says this game isn't powerful enough because that's not the kind of game it's intended to be.
Yeah, I mean, not every game is for every person.
And that's also important to remember. And one of the first things I always tell people when I'm editing their game and we're having that conversation I talked about is what is your game and who do you want your audience to be? And I get very nervous when they say my game is for everyone.
Yeah, and nothing is for. I mean, I get what they're saying. My game is for everyone, but there's going to be certain things that some people will like and other people won't like, and it's about working out what those things are and targeting it to an audience.
Well, there is no game that's for everyone. I mean, there are people that love GURPS. I mean, GURPS is a great example because it covers all genres, it covers all years, it can be as complicated or as not as you want. But the rule set itself is pretty crunchy. They're not targeting people who want rules light, and they're not targeting people who don't like point buys.
Yeah.
They're targeting an audience of people who like a moderately crunchy game and who don't mind point buy. That's still a really wide audience, but it does narrow your audience. And you need to write for that audience. Yeah, Driving and Dragon says, in other words, your game has no direction.
Yeah, Bad Toad's brother Toad's wish to know if you've used the Affinity publishing program or the other members of that family, and if so, how do you like them?
I have used Affinity. It seems to do very well for layout. It absolutely, you're going to get one of my rare F-bombs here. It fucking sucks to edit on. It's a nightmare. It takes 2 or 3 times as long as it does to do Word. But for layout, it's not bad. I mean, it's finding where everything is located is kind of a pain. But once, I mean, honestly, EV Mux is the same way. It works really well once you've figured out where everything is located. You do not,
It's got a learning curve then.
yeah, you do not want to get the program and then immediately think you're going to use it right away. You want to get it and you want to play with it on something that is not your document so that you learn where stuff is and what it does. Don't edit on it. It's terrible.
But it's good for layout.
I mean, it seems to be. I have not done a ton with it, but I know a bunch of people who have. And I have seen the program and I have seen where stuff is and how a lot of it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a program that I've been meant to check out for layout actually. So if it's got your
I think it's
your
free
seal
now.
of approval for that,
Oh yeah,
yeah, that was why I wanted to check it out. Is that it's free.
I should clarify. I do not know if they have made changes since they made it free. Or how many changes they may have made. They were bought out by Canva. And Canva, when they bought them, immediately got shittier. It
Yeah,
still does.
Canva is a steaming pile of crap, in my opinion.
It was okay for a while. It was never good for videos, but it was good for certain other things. And I still do my thumbnails with it. But yeah, I am seriously beginning to doubt whether or not it's worth the $15 a month I'm paying for it. Because I'm pretty sure I could use other programs that are cheaper to just make thumbnails, and that's pretty much all it's good for now.
So that token said that that's what we have. So he was wondering, he's the edit man.
Yeah, don't do it.
What would you suggest for editing then, software wise?
I mean, honestly, unless you're willing to spend money, Word is mostly what I use. I don't like it. I wish I could afford a better program that is actually designed for editing. But as far as something that people have easy access to, that isn't going to cost you a ton of extra money, that's about as good as it's going to get.
So the advice there is do the editing, write it in Word, do the editing in Word, then do the layout in Affinity if you're using free.
Assuming that Affinity has not changed a lot since the buyout.
Yeah. But to play with Affinity with something that isn't the thing you're trying to do the layout for before you do that, because it has a bit of a learning curve, or it did before the buyout.
Yeah, I was going to
We're
say,
going on your experience from before it was bought out, but
yeah, they may have dumbed it down.
does that hopefully answer your question, Bad Toad Games?
I mean, it was originally designed for nothing except page layout. So
so let's on the subject of things that people are using for free. I suppose we should talk about money when it comes to hiring an editor. You do have to budget for the things that you're using. Let's say you're running a Kickstarter and you need to raise X amount of dollars. That amount of dollars probably should include professional editing if people are crowdfunding your production, for example. So how could somebody find out how much it's going to cost to do that? Where would they find your rates? Where would you even go start to look for rates, for example?
Um, if you are looking in general, um, not me. There is a I don't want to say company. There's an organization that is like the International Freelance Editors. Now, understand if you're publishing through another company, they're going to provide an editor. The problem is that that editor is going to be able to make changes to your work because it's going to have to fit the publisher's vision, not your vision. Um, I'm trying to remember. Make sure I'm getting the name right here. International Freelance Editors. Making sure I've got this right. Because there are two of them. There's the Editorial Freelance Association. And then there.
Thanks for joining us, Toad, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Toad Games has to leave.
Bad Toads, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate you, and thank you for the donations again. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I'm giving you the right information here. I will look it up while I keep talking, though. Editorial Freelance Association. There we go. They give you the average freelance rates for various types of editing over various genres. You can get it by word, you can get it by hour, etc.
Okay, so it's going to vary slightly from that, but it'll give you a ballpark figure that you can use.
That will give you a ballpark, yes. So if you are trying to figure prices for your Kickstarter or something, that's a good place to start. The issue you're going to have is that if you do the math between like price per word, price per page, or price per hour, there's actually a lot of discrepancy. I used to charge by the page until the day someone said, I have this thing that is X number of pages, and I quoted them a price based on X number of pages. And then it turned out it was X number of pages because they had shrunk the font down to like 6 points. And now I charge per word.
You can't see me because I'm a VTuber, but I'm face palming.
So now I charge per word. To be fair, that was not the first person to do that. I can't remember what the other one was. They didn't change the font size, but they did something else. But between those two incidents, I was like, okay, people are obviously going to attempt to rip me off. So now I charge per word. And I have figured out very quickly that my per word, because I don't have a great editing program and because my eyesight is shit and because I have medical issues, probably doesn't even make minimum wage if you figure it out per hour. But so be it. I like what I do, at least for the moment. If I ever get fancier, then that'll probably change. But I tend to charge on the very low end. So the editing thing I was just talking about, the site that I was just talking about, obviously does not have role-playing games as an option. So I just based it on books. The problem is that books, you just read them. You don't have to spend 4 hours going through the rules and rolling dice to make sure that they actually work the way they're supposed to work. So I suppose what I should be doing is just editing based on what's there, and then rolling dice if they take the break my game option. Um, but
If,
as previously mentioned, I'm a terrible capitalist.
yep. So if somebody's on a really tight budget, they're self-funding everything, but they want to get a third party to look over their work, would you say that a proofread at the very minimum is enough, or is there a sort of cheap option and an expensive option, or is it just a case of these are the rates per word and that's what you're going to have to budget for?
I think that's going to depend on the editor. I mean, there are editors that won't do just proofreading. I assume there are probably editors that will only do proofreading. You're
Oh, I
gonna
have a
have
proofreading guy.
you're gonna have a hard time finding people who do role playing games because it's like technical manuals. Like you have to have expertise in that area in order to know whether or not it works.
Oh, agreed. My proofreading guy is a magician who does magic books.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Um,
it's a specialist subject that you need to be able to understand it.
yeah. I mean, first of all, you have to just accept it's going to cost you money. My rates are ridiculously low, and I'm not saying that to try and get people to hire me. I'm saying that because every time I do a job, I go, "Fuck, I should have charged twice as much for this." Because something always comes up. There always ends up needing to be several hours worth of back and forth while I explain. Like, I can't write a note about this chunk because the note would take 6 pages. It's faster for me just to get on the phone with you. Um, there always ends up being something that I'm like, yeah, I should have budgeted for that.
Yeah. So
Um,
what you're saying really is that even though it might appear expensive to someone in terms of the time spent on the work, actually it is cheap. Um,
I once spent 10 days, including weekends, on a job that I got paid $350 for. I told you I'm a terrible capitalist.
yeah, that's definitely bad capitalism.
Now, to be fair, that was the job that had all the algebraic stuff in because I was already under contract and I didn't realize there was going to be I didn't realize I'd written a math book. Um Honestly, I would have told them that was a technical manual had I realized. Um of course I check rules. I mean, I'd be a terrible line editor if I didn't. Um but it can easily, let's see. So the job that I did that was about 180 pages was $1,200. But it took me a month. Um, so $1,200 is going to feel like a lot of money to an indie person with no budget that's writing a game. But I made $1,200 over 4 weeks.
I suppose that comes down to are they budgeting that $1,200 in their fundraising or in their expected return on the book?
Well, probably some people don't
If you
fundraise.
don't
Some
think you're
people are
going
just
to
doing it
sell
out of
enough of
pocket.
a book to pay an editor $1,200, you're not selling very many copies of your book, or you need to put the price of your book up.
Well, some people aren't doing any fundraising. They're paying out of pocket before the book has ever seen anything.
Yeah,
Um,
but they would have an expected return when it goes to print.
right, but the problem is that there are people out there who can't afford to lose that if they don't meet the expected return. And that's why I tend to keep my rates so low because I don't ever want someone to not be able to create because money. I mean, it's like this stream. Yes, the donations are really appreciated. I desperately need the money to cover my medical bills. But I don't ever want someone to not be able to get information they need because they're just as broke as I am.
And that's
Um,
a very noble way to do business.
I mean, we'd be so much better off if it's the way everyone did business.
Well, it's the way that I do business, and that's probably why we get along so well, is that we share those sorts of values.
I am so the joke. I joke I'm a terrible capitalist, but the thing is, I'm a great capitalist. I'm a very bad crony capitalist. Like, and yes, there is a difference. Um, the other thing that's important is that if somebody wants to hire me, I also write. I'm mostly write nonfiction. Um, I do sometimes struggle
Oh,
with
your microphone's just gone a bit unclear. I think you may have knocked the headpiece.
I didn't think so, but am I better?
Sounding better now, yeah.
Oh, good. Um, so, if there is a section of your see, this is problematic too, because I don't want to say, hey, if I tell you that this chapter isn't working, I'll rewrite it. That like gives me financial reason to tell you this section isn't working. And I don't want to do that. But if someone else tells you this section isn't working, um, I am happy to do a consult on how to rewrite it so it does work, if that's something that you're struggling with. I do write professionally. I have been published. How many times have I been published now? I don't even know. 2 years ago, my count was over 50 articles. So
And that consultancy is something that we were discussing the other day as a potential service that you should probably be promoting because you are an expert in your field.
I know, but
Uh,
once again, I'm really terrible about.
well, let's talk about it now because you do have game designers in the chat. Um, Obviously, $1,200 for editing is a lot of money, and people do have to do things themselves. What would you charge for a 1 hour consult for somebody to then go back and do
I
the
think
work
it would
themselves?
probably. Okay. If they want to consult on what, editing or on writing?
Let's say on writing because you were just discussing it then.
Well, I don't know if they're doing the work themselves, it kind of is an editing thing. It's kind of a blurred line. Um,
Yeah,
I don't
but
know,
let's say
honestly.
okay. So
So,
they've got a
you're
180-page book. You're going to quickly skim through it and highlight any glaring issues and have a chat with them for an hour.
so that one I would probably do by the hour. And that would have to include the time it took me to read the book. And honestly, like you and I just discussed this recently. It's not something. Okay, you're going to yell at me about this. This is not something I normally charge for. I normally just do it. um, I can sense Simon scowling behind his camera.
I am.
Um,
I
so
believe that people should be paid for the work that they do, paid fairly for the work that they do.
see, the problem is
And
that
you're
I love
working
it,
for
and I have a
free.
really hard time thinking of it as work. I mean, you do consults with people, right?
Yeah,
For
I
your
to some extent I do offer some advice for free. There's a big difference between sort of taking a look at someone's work and going, oh yeah, if you change that, it's probably going to be better. To properly sitting down with them for an hour and going through it page by page and going like, right, on this page you need to fix this page you need to fix this. Um,
not that it matters, but I just checked and I've got over 100 articles published.
wow,
Um, plus another 15 that are due this year that are under contract.
yeah.
Um, I mean,
So
do
let's
you
say you're not doing a full edit. You're just going to quickly skim read each page, because let's say 180 pages. You've got a third of a minute per page in an hour consult. So
except it's probably longer than that, especially if it's electronic, because um I'm having to stop and make notes.
yeah,
I mean, if I'm reading a book for fun, I can read a book a day, on top of getting all my regular stuff done. But if I am electronically focusing on a specific document with a specific purpose to look for errors, um, if I get through 20 pages in an afternoon, I'm doing well. Because I make a lot of notes. I don't just say, here are the, well, that's the thing. I don't usually go for glaring errors. Like, I'm literally making notes on almost every sentence. Um,
and that's
I can,
why it's worth the $1,200. But
oh, I'm not saying I shouldn't be charging more for that. I'm just saying I've never done the consult. I've never charged for the consultation thing because until you mentioned it, had never occurred to me. Do you ever charge for consultations?
I have done, yes. I
Well,
won't go
great.
into.
Once we're done, I'll talk to you about it, and I will probably immediately cut whatever you charge by $20 an hour, and we'll go with that.
You charge whatever the market will bear, so that's going to be different for you to what it is for me because you're
I,
operating in a different niche. But we'll discuss that off stream, I suppose,
I mean, the
because
thing is
it's
that
more of a business management thing rather than an editing thing. And the people here in the chat are interested in what you do rather than what I do.
um, I mean, you do magic, right? Because I bet people would be really into magic too. I have a hard
Yeah,
time believing there's not a huge.
I do magic amongst other things, but yeah. Um,
I have a hard time imagining there's not a huge overlap between people who love magicians and people who love role playing games. It's kind of like the overlap between people who love role playing games and people who love goats. Like, it's wider than you'd expect.
it probably is, but we'll maybe interview me another day. We do
um,
have about 20 minutes left on the stream, so again, if anyone has any questions that they wanted to get in, now is the time to do so.
I want to make a comment only because I've seen this come up several times, and it's really, really important. Writing your game is going to be the easy part. The thing I have seen about novels and games both is that um, people write their thing and they put it out on the internet, and then they think they're going to sit back and watch the money roll in, and that never works. Um,
No,
y-
with any self-employed business, marketing is the thing that makes you the money.
but I
You have
know
to
I
be
know
good enough.
so many people that like get very depressed and very angry because they don't make money off their game. And I'm like, your game is on Drive Through RPG, which has like hundreds of thousands of other games, many of which are supplements for the same game you based yours on. And you have done no marketing, no self what's the word I'm looking for? Self uh promotion,
Self-promotion.
self-promotion. Yeah. Um, you just put the game out there, it dropped into the murk with everything else, and if someone finds it, it's sheer luck. Um,
One could
action
say the same of editors.
Action Tactics Roleplay, and this is why I thought of it because he's in the chat. Um, has a Facebook page, has a Twitter page, constantly puts out pictures and advertisements, and probably should do a Kickstarter. Because I think that would actually do really well. Uh, Corpse Kings also does incredibly well. Promotes daily, multiple times a day. Not not specifically the game, but also like does things to increase engagement so that people will see the game. Um, and as much as people are like, well, like I wrote the game, that's all I wanted to do. If you want the game or the novel or the whatever to go anywhere, part of being an indie author is you need to expect that you're going to keep working after the writing is done. And for that matter, you should be doing that before the game is ever done. Action Tactics, um, stop me if I'm wrong. Before your game was finished, weren't you already promoting it? I think you were on my show before your game was actually finished. Um, and that goes a long ways. Having a following before you do your game. Professor DM is gonna crush his Kickstarter when it starts because
Yeah, he's got a huge following, and
he
they're all
already
going to
has a
buy it.
following. There are already people who love Deathbringer, which is what he's based it around. There are already people who they may never play his game. They're still gonna buy it.
Driving and Dragons has said people act like trying to get people to buy your stuff is somehow sleazy. And yeah, it's not. If people don't know about your products, they're not going to buy them. You've got to get it out there and, put it in front of people. This is good. You should try it out and buy it.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
I think the trick is that you can't. So if Corpse Kings did nothing but say, buy my book, 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 people would get sick of it. But once a day, he says, hey, maybe you'd like to buy my book. And then he posts like 20 questions that will get people engaged with him as a person. And then maybe they'll buy his
so,
book.
Action Tactics Roleplay, I've run a few successful Kickstarter campaigns before. If you did want to run one and you want to have a chat about it, feel free to drop me an email. I'm just going to put my email address in the chat for you.
Action Tactics, aside from everything else, like, I've, I will be honest, I have not read his book like in its entirety because I'm constantly doing reviews for other books. But it's different. And the market is howling for stuff that's different.
The thing with
Um,
Kickstarter as well is that it has like it has people that will watch categories on it, like people that regularly fund Kickstarters because they want, like, they collect role playing games, for example, or they
yep.
collect playing cards, or well, whatever you're putting on there. There are people that will jump on it and fund it if what you're putting on there looks like it's going to get fulfilled. Is the key thing.
Yeah, that's the trick. But the other thing is that Kickstarter will promote games that get a certain. The reason most Kickstarters have a thing where you can donate $1 just because is because if you get a certain number of donations in the first like 24 or 48 hours of your game of your Kickstarter, they will promote it on the front page. And so if you just have to line up family and friends, hand each of them $1 and say, as soon as this goes live, I need you to donate $1 to my Kickstarter.
It's also worth noting that there are bots that will donate $1 because the account that's donating the dollar, I guess, gets something out of having backed lots of different things. So when I've put playing cards on Kickstarter, for example, as soon as I put them on there, I immediately get a $1 donation from some random account that's playing card related, and they're running their own Kickstarter campaigns. So I assume that it somehow helps with their own SEO to be donating $1 to my one.
Yeah, and this is not just Action Tactics, but like anyone who's putting a game out there who's considering kickstarting, the two things you can do are if you get a certain number of donations in the first 48, I think it's 48 hours, it might be 24, or if you hit a certain percentage, I think it's like if you break 50% in the first 3 days or something like that. Um, those, at least once upon a time, the algorithm changes. But Kickstarter promotes it on the front page, and there used to be at least specific numbers that if you met a certain number by a certain date, it almost guaranteed that your Kickstarter was going to succeed. The other thing you do is if you get down to the last 4 hours and you have not made your goal, and you're definitely not going to make your goal, you cancel it. You don't let it run out, because then you show up as having a failed Kickstarter. You cancel it, and then it doesn't go, it's not a mark against your record. So it doesn't show up as like this Kickstarter, he's had 5 Kickstarters that didn't succeed.
See,
Because
I've never failed on a Kickstarter, so that
say again.
none of my Kickstarters have ever failed to fund. So I've never been in that situation, but it's good to know.
I know one person that their Kickstarter write-up was not very good. And my brother had written a supplement for them, which is how I was connected with this. Because my brother has written game supplements. I edit, he writes. The game was good, but the write-up wasn't. Like, it was really rushed. They didn't get any followers ahead of time. They basically were just like, book's done, boom, we're going to kickstart right away. And they got to the last, I don't know, 5 hours or something, and they canceled it. And I messaged him and I was like, what's up with this? And he said, because they don't want the cancellation mark against them. And 2 months later, they put it back up with a new write-up, better advertising, followers, and they blew it away.
So,
it was a learning experience for them, and they got better.
So Driving and Dragons has said 90% of the issue with Kickstarter is it rewards gaming the system dishonestly, and yeah, it does, but you don't have to do that. That does put a lot of people off of backing Kickstarters as well, because there's bad actors on there, which is
Well,
unfortunate. But if you have you have something that you need to, a project that you need to raise funds for, it is a valid means of doing that. Let's say you've got a RPG book, you've written the rules, but you need to get the art done, you need to get the editing done, you need to get the layout done. You would budget all of those things and say, this is what we want to get done, this is how much we need. The rules are already written, so there's, you're guaranteed to actually get rules if you back it. Make sure people understand what they're funding and the risks associated with it. And honestly, if you do that, you probably will get funded. As
yeah,
long as
I
the
mean,
funding goal is realistic.
yeah, there are Kickstarters that go wrong, but Kickstarter has pretty good protections in place for the people. And the thing is that if you have followers ahead of time, you know that those people already plan on getting your game. So if you ask them, I'll give you a discount if you do it in the first day, you're not really gaming the system, because they were already going to do it. You've just made sure that they do it quickly.
Yeah, you have an early bird discount for the first 24 hours or first 48 hours that they then can't get after that. A
And
really common thing for people to have on them.
I'll tell you, the backer kit is the other one that's big for games. I have backed 3 things on backer kit, and 2 of them I never got my product, and the third one, it turned out it sucked.
Oh, I backed a RPG book on Kickstarter, and it went years and years over. It went something like 2 years over for people actually receiving it. And because of all of the negative comments on their project because people hadn't received it, they moved over to BackerKit, and so I started automatically getting sales posts from them for their new projects that they hadn't even delivered the one that I backed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you get people like that, and it sucks. But
Well,
you do
I had
also get people that are legitimately raising funds for products that they are intending to fulfill, and you get people that want to back those products. So
But I would say that so I've backed about 20 things on Kickstarter. I've only ever had a bad experience, and personal experience is terrible statistics. I'm willing to admit that. Um, but I have had out of 20 backings, I've had one that went bad, and I complained to Kickstarter and I got my money back. BackerKit has absolutely no way to get your money back if they don't deliver. I think one of the BackerKit ones, I eventually got refunded. But it was because I made a huge stink. And the second one, I didn't get it back at all. And the third one, I got the product, but it turned out not to be it turned out not to be very good. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I think
yeah,
one of the things to remember with Kickstarters is the important thing. I Somebody told me once that for every stretch goal you have, when people are doing their timelines, they don't figure in their stretch goals. They figure, well, I already have the book mostly written. I just need to get the art done and put in, and I need to get it printed. And they
yeah,
figure
stretch
X amount
goals
of
is
time for the art. They figure X amount of time for the printing. But then they've also done stretch goals for like 3D printed minis. And they don't take into account that, well, yeah, you got 3D printed minis, but it's going to take 8 months to get those through.
so
Um,
stretch goals is something where I've personally set different completion dates for the stretch goals.
mhm.
So people get the thing that they get on time, and I actually everything that I've kickstarted, I've fulfilled everything before the promised fulfillment date because people like when you do that. But you can set a different date for the stretch goals so that people know they're going to arrive after the main thing. And as long as people know what they're getting and when they're getting it and everything is done honestly, people are generally quite happy with them.
Yep. Do
I
lots
have
of
had one
updates.
person contacted me, I think 2 or 3 years after I ran a Kickstarter, saying, "Hey, I never got my thing." I was
Huh.
like, "Well, I did post it to you and sent you the tracking number about 3 years ago. That tracking number doesn't bring anything up now. But hey, I'll send you another one because whatever." Um,
Yeah, I mean, but I think yeah, I mean, we kind of got off on a Kickstarter tangent, but the important thing
yeah,
is the job does not stop with the writing. You have to, it's not just that you have to keep marketing and you have to keep doing self promotion. You have to have a plan as to how you're going to market, where you're going to find people. You know, Shadowrun was such a huge success, not because it's the best game ever. It's pretty good, but it's, you know, probably not. But she went to every single convention and ran multiple sessions of this game. She already kind of had a name. She got people hyped up for the game before it ever went to Kickstarter. She did the same thing with Western Reaches. She did a whole bunch of live streams, you know, like one a week for a while, where she talked about um, classes she was going to include in Western Reaches, and she broke massive Kickstarter goals. And that's guaranteed purchases before the book ever even hits the shelf. Um, Conventions aren't going to work for everyone. So you have to have a plan ahead of time. What am I going to do to promote my game before it's even done? How am I going to get people to pay attention to me when it's done? Um, you know, it's that is part of, I mean, as much as I'm an editor primarily, um, I have worked in the past with enough businesses that I have some vague idea of what works and what doesn't for layouts. And I have some idea of like how much effort needs to go into promotion. The business newsletter that I gave as an example earlier, um, it's a greenhouse. It's only open for 3, maybe 4 months a year. They still put out newsletters every week all year so that nobody forgets they exist.
And this is what we said earlier, that marketing is the important thing.
Yep. Yep, that's part of the writing, or it should be part of the writing, and goals for marketing should be part of the writing. At what point will we know we're succeeding because we've achieved X number of followers? And again, I don't have a ton of YouTube followers. But that's because I am not willing to do all of the things that are needed to do. Like I could probably do really well if I were willing to do clickbait stuff, and like I know all of the things I need to do to get more followers. I'm just not willing to do them. Um, but I'm not publishing a book either. So
So it looks like Pedrob um, has a failed Kickstarter that they've ran, Rotted Capes.
the most recent one succeeded though. Pedro was on last week. Last week. Yeah, I was shocked because I was like, superheroes and zombies. How did that how did that not succeed? But he said, he didn't worry about backers or followers ahead of time.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's getting it in front of people. If they don't know it exists, they can't buy it.
yep. I do not normally do superhero games, but if I'd had the money, I would have backed that one because that looked like a lot of fun. It is
Okay,
a
yeah, so they did make it. They just didn't get as many backers as they would have liked, and
oh okay.
yeah, it's
I
unfortunate,
thought
but
it did.
um,
I thought the Kickstarter went well, or succeeded anyway.
it succeeded, but they didn't get as many as they'd like.
Oh well,
Which,
yeah, that makes sense.
that's a shame. No, obviously, we'd all like to sell a shitload of product when we make things, but sometimes it doesn't happen. And as long as you're making enough, that's what matters. And that Kickstarter goal should be enough, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't get funded, you don't make it. No one gets it. Tough shit for them. And that to some extent helps get the funding goal met. Is that if somebody has backed something and it's close to being funded but isn't quite funded, they might share it with their mates to try and get it pushed over the edge. That is a tactic that I've used to get it past the funding goal. Is, hey, look, you all want this thing. Can you share it, please? So that you get it.
Yeah, I mean, marketing yourself can be really hard for some people. Um, I do want to make, I know we're over time. I do want to make one other comment. One of the things I get a lot is I cannot, how does this usually go? I can't hire an editor because it costs too much money for my book cover. And this is frequently told to me by people who are talking about the fact that they paid $600 to $800 for their book cover. Hang on a second. I'm gonna share. This is the book that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, we're not naming and shaming, are we?
No. Actually, what I was gonna say is Tom has told me repeatedly that he has never paid more than $120 for a book cover. I don't think that
Can
this
you
is a
put me
bad.
in touch with his artist? Because that's reasonably priced.
I don't think that this is a bad book cover. He used the same artist for his entire series so that he'd have, a consistent style. They did a really good job because there's a lot of difference in his books as time moves on. So it's the same style, but at the same time, the world needs to feel different. They did a great job with that. Um, and he didn't pay nearly what people are talking about for covers that I have seen that are not great. Um,
So I'm going to say people
okay.
should be treated what they want for their labour. Um, so those people that are charging more and it's not as good, up to the artist what they want to charge, but it's likewise up to people if like customers if they want to pay it. Shop around.
The other thing is that there are countries where $120 is a ton of money, and they have great artists.
Yeah, we live
Um,
in the 21st century. Trade is global.
it
Uh,
is it is difficult to. It's like handing your book over to somebody who's an editor. Like you want to make sure that they're a real artist and they're not just going to take your money and run. Um, but people like Simon and I keep lists of artists. Shoot, what are their name?
yeah,
Vicky and Dean, um, from Everay Games. Like they have a huge list of artists because they've been making their own game and they had a budget and they shopped all over the world. Um, I'm not saying you're not gonna. I mean, your cover is probably going to be more expensive than your internal art.
and
Um,
I've just seen Corvid Codex cost over $400, and I would say $400 is reasonable for a
yeah,
book
400 is
cover.
reasonable.
It's a good
But
cover.
and I
Well,
suppose
120 is cheap, but that's presumably using someone who's undervaluing their labour or somebody in a foreign country where it's cheaper, and it's up to you if you want to do that.
well, I think the other thing too was that he contracted her for 6 books.
Yeah,
So
so
it was a
that's
whole
another thing is
it was a bunch of money up front.
yeah, and some people will work for less over time because they know they've got like a big payment coming in that covers lots of things, or it's bulk buying basically.
Yep. And he may too. Like the $120 was at the point that book came out. He may have paid her more as the books became more popular.
Yeah.
Um, I know
So
people who pay, they pay an agreed upon amount for a book cover, and then the book sells very, very well, and they give it as a bonus. They give everybody who was involved a bonus. Um,
I think the point that you were getting at initially with this though is that if you can afford 1,200 for a book cover, you can afford 1,200 for an editor.
yeah, I think the logic is, well, the cover looks really cool, so people are more likely to buy it, and then who gives a shit if it's badly edited? And I
Yeah, well,
guess
if
I
someone
guess
buys
if
a
you're
book and it's shit on the inside, no one else is going to buy it.
well, there's that. There's the word of mouth issue. You're not likely to become popular. But maybe if you're one and done and you're just out for a cash grab, that's one thing. But number one, if your book is something you're really passionate about, or your game is something you're really passionate about, I can't imagine anyone spending, years of their life on something that was just a quick cash grab. Um, and if you want to write, let's say you want to write a trilogy, and people buy your first book because the cover was really cool, but then the editing is really terrible, they're never buying your second book.
And yeah, Driving Dragons. It sounds like you've got a decent deal with that 400 with getting the copyright and it being work for hire.
Yeah, 400 seems fine. It's just, the people that say, I paid $800 for a book cover, so I can't afford an editor.
Yeah,
Well, if you could pay
you need to
$800 for,
budget for both.
yeah, yep. I don't know if anybody saw my interview with Matt Page. Matt Page is probably more well known to people in the chat as Master Ken. He does a comedic thing on YouTube. If you haven't
I
seen it, you
couldn't
should check
watch
it out.
it because it got fucking copyright striked or something, so the UK can't see it.
One of them is. The other one should not be. I clipped a bunch of stuff out and made a separate video. And I've actually got a second one that I clipped all of the movie stuff out of so it wouldn't be copyrighted. And one of the things he talked about is the first time he directed a movie himself instead of acting in it. Um, and he was given, a specific budget. And he said, well, I edit my videos all the time. I don't need to hire a video editor. I'll just do it myself. And he said by the time they were done shooting the movie, he was so exhausted that he ended up doing another fundraiser and raising $10,000 to hire a video editor who would do it very fast because at that point they were on a deadline. Um, Now I'm never going to make $10,000 on a job, and I'm not doing video editing, but I think a lot of people probably are going to find that like once you hit the end of the project, it's kind of exhausting. You're just like, ugh, goal finished. Um, Now it's supposed to go to publication. Now what?
So Pedro said a good cover will sell copies, and yeah, a good cover will sell copies, but a good cover with good content that's edited well inside it will sell even more copies. You want that over time. You don't just want people going, oh, it's got a good cover, I'll buy that, it looks good, and then word of mouth gets out that it's shit on the inside.
Well, the other thing is that I mean, if you walk into a bookstore these days, of course, romance the fantasy section has been taken over by romantasy. Um, and they're all AI really basic covers that are like black with some sort of like fringe around the edges. Um, it's and some of the greatest books ever have had very, very simple covers. Handmaiden's Tale is basically a black cover with a, red silhouette. Jurassic Park was a white cover with a silhouette of a dinosaur. I think if I remember correctly, like Psycho was just a black book with white lettering. Sometimes the font makes a difference, but your cover designer isn't going to do that most of the time. And this is not like everybody needs to hire me. This is I want your projects to do really well. And in order to do really well, they need to be ready before they hit the shelf.
So
And
if someone did want to hire you, how would they go about that?
I am on Twitter. I am on Facebook. I have an email, eclecticgoatediting@gmail.com. Usually when I do quotes, that's what I do it through. So even if you contact me through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or, oh, what else do I do these days? Substack. Um, I will probably have you send your test pages to the Eclectic Goat Editing email. That way everybody knows that all contracts will come from there, all discussion will come from there. If it comes from anywhere else, it's not me. Um, I also have, you know, it's also better protected for both of us than some of the social media sites. There have been so many scams lately that, um, so I will have you send me
The best thing to do is to
whatever,
email you.
huh?
The best thing to do is to email you then.
Well, yeah, but if people can't remember what the email address is, they can easily find me on any of the socials because I always have the same green goat. And I'm always under the same name. Um, and then I can just shift you to the email. But I will have you send the copies, the agreed upon number of pages to the email. I will look it over. I will message back and forth a little bit about, like, I think I will require, what's your timeline, what's your goal, what's your whatever. I'm also willing to do that versus a call if people are better with that. And then I will write up a statement of work, which is a contract between me and the writer that declares exactly what the deadline is, what I'm going to be doing, what I'm not going to be doing, how much it's going to cost, when payment is expected, how payment is expected, and then signed by both parties.
It's all a fairly straightforward process then to hire
That's
you.
my goal. That's my goal. I figure people who are trying to develop a whole game are probably don't need any extras. They don't need anything more to be stressed about.
So we are 23 minutes over time, so we
Yep.
should probably be wrapping it up. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to get across, Goat?
I just want to again thank all the people who donated. It's I'm blown away. I'm kind of sputtering here because I was absolutely astonished. It's yeah, I feel much more relieved than when we started this
Yeah.
stream. I've had a lot of stress this weekend. It means a lot, not just because the money is helpful, because it's also just really lovely to know that the stuff I do matters to people, and that I have the best herd ever.
Yeah, people appreciate you.
I admire everyone who is developing their own thing. That's one of the reasons I will never say like anything out there is terrible, because the fact that anybody put a huge amount of effort into something is admirable in and of itself. And I admire everyone who takes a stab at it. I think that's it. I think otherwise I'd just be repeating myself.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's stuck with us through the interview. And thanks to everyone who's asked questions, and thanks to everyone who's contributed towards the Eclectic Goat's medical bills. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the Eclectic Goat. She appreciates all of you, and I'm sure you all appreciate her. It's a great herd.
It is best herd ever. I do want to say next week is going to be my birthday stream, so I'm going to be starting real early and running real late. And I will have the link up for anybody who wants to hop in for a few minutes at a time. And we'll celebrate. Have a good time. Thank you, Simon, for doing this, and for kind of keeping the reins on this. I really appreciate it. And thank you to
No
everybody.
worries, we should do this again sometime. I've still
Yeah.
got probably 650 questions to ask.
All right. Everyone in the chat, thank you very much. You are all greatly appreciated. And happy headbutting.
It's a fucking goat!
Eclectic Goat's got videos of indie authors and cinema love. A passion for the weird and the strange. She's snappily dressed and only slightly deranged. Come and meet the Eclectic Goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd. Shows might be a little improper. We've got real zombie, fake whizzes the otter, pizza in one hoof, glass in the other, deciding which role-playing games we will cover. Come and meet the Eclectic Goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd. Got a thing for black and white screens, crappy horror with low budget scenes. Choose on the history, spits out the law. Time for another whiskey pour. Come and meet the eclectic goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy head buddy, come join